Darkness swallowed up the last trace of light like a tide. The once blue sky was now nothing but endless blackness. Meteorite rain shattered the horizon, raising the pungent smell of scorched earth and rotten blood. Screams echoed through the ruins, intermittently, like throats torn apart by claws. Monsters crawl out of the shadows, their eyes glowing like rubies and their claws scraping against the concrete, preying on anything that moves. Human. It's just fresh meat. The barbed wire fence of the abandoned military camp had been torn to pieces, and the wind was filled with distant screams and growls. Qin Feng huddled in the corner of the ammunition depot, holding his head in his hands, sweat mixed with dust sliding down his face. His engineering tools were scattered all over the floor, his oxygen mask was broken, and his breath was filled with the smell of moldy rust. "It's over, it's all over," he murmured to himself, his voice trembling like a candle in the wind. "If the sun doesn't come back, are we going to live in this hellish place forever?" Outside the door, Lu Ting was waving the iron pipe he had picked up. His muscles were bulging like iron, but he was also panting. Two mutated dogs pounced, their sharp teeth dripping with green pus, their fur was like rotting bark, and they emitted a foul odor. "Get away! You beasts!" He roared angrily, smashing the jaw of a monster with a pipe. The sound of bone cracking was heard clearly, and hot blood spattered onto his face, making his skin sting. But the other end jumped on his back, claws digging into his shoulders, tearing apart the flesh. "Ah!" Lu Ting knelt down and let go of the iron pipe. Desperation flashed in his eyes. I can't hold it anymore." Tang Yu leaned against the wall, pressing his hands on the wound on his abdomen. Blood seeped into the bandage and dyed the army green uniform red. Her syringe was empty, her last shot of morphine was gone, and the pain was burning. "Someone come, save us," she whispered, her vision blurred, and she heard the rhythm of the monster's claws scraping the door, like the countdown of death. The iron door exploded with a bang, and the sound of gunfire exploded into the night sky like thunder. The bullet whizzed and accurately penetrated the mutant dog's head. Green brain matter exploded in all directions, and the fishy smell was instantly strong and nauseating. Lu Ting raised his head, widened his eyes, and saw a figure intruding, Chen Feng. His military uniform was tattered but straight. The M4 carbine in his hand was smoking, and his face was as fearless as a rock. "Get up! Don't lie down if you're not dead yet!" Chen Feng shouted, kicked away the corpses that were coming towards him, and fired with his gun to suppress the thing squirming in the shadows outside the door. His movements were smooth and flowing, and every shot hit his head. The monster made a wet muffled sound when it fell to the ground, and the pool of blood spread, reflecting his cold outline. Lu Ting struggled to get up, his shoulders were bleeding profusely, and he stared at Chen Feng's back with a trembling voice. Who are you? How can you be so accurate?" Without looking back, Chen Feng threw out a pack of bandages and hit Tang Yu, pressed the wound to stop the bleeding. He turned around and smashed the skull of the last monster with a knee. The bones cracked like firecrackers, and green blood splashed all over his boots. Qin Feng was stunned, his eyes were as wide as copper bells. "Oh my God, he can solve all those things, by himself." Chen Feng glanced at the three of them, his eyes like daggers. "Stop talking nonsense. This military camp is my territory. If you want to live, come with me. There are more and more monsters, and there are not enough supplies to give to the cowards." He kicked away a corpse, revealing a hidden ammunition box, and the smell of rust hit his nostrils. The three of them exchanged glances. Lu Ting gritted his teeth and stood up straight. "My name is Lu Ting, and I have worked as a mercenary. Your shooting skills are awesome. But there are monsters outside, how can we survive?" Tang Yu bandaged the wound, and a blush appeared on his pale face. "Thank you. My name is Tang Yu, a medical soldier. We are running out of ammunition. We can't survive tonight." Qin Feng picked up the tools, his voice still shaking. "Qin Feng, engineer. This eternal night, the temperature is dropping, monsters are adapting to the darkness, and we humans, are like blind. Chen Feng sneered, tore open a pack of compressed biscuits, and gave each person one piece, just one piece, dry and hard as stone, and tasted like gravel when chewed. The first rule, strict distribution of supplies. One person takes one bite, and whoever eats more gets out. He took a bite, and the sound of chewing was particularly loud in the silence. The three of them stared at the biscuit with hunger, their throats rolled, and a hungry green light flashed in their eyes. Lu Ting swallowed and clenched his fists. That's it. I can eat 10 yuan a day. $10. Those survivors outside are killing each other for half a pack of cigarettes. Do you want to test your humanity? Chen Feng's eyes were like a torch, piercing Lu Ting's heart. Lu Ting had a lump in his throat and lowered his head. Okay, you have the final say. Chen Feng nodded and started searching. The 5.56 bullets in the ammunition box clinked to the ground, counting 300 rounds, the remaining gauze and anti-inflammatory drugs in the medical box. The pungent smell of the medicine made Tang Yu's eyes light up. There were only a few cans of meat sauce and kettles left in the food cabinet, with a faint musty smell. Article 2, Keep vigil in shifts. Lu Ting, your first shift is to eliminate the surrounding mobs. Exchange your iron pipe for my dagger, a sharp melee weapon that can cut your throat with one blow. Lu Ting took the dagger, the blade flashed with cold light. He tried to swing it, the air made a tearing sound, and his eyes widened. Damn, this thing is much harder than my pipe. Where did you get it? Military camp secrets. Qin Feng, you are responsible for the design of the fortress. Use scrap iron and sandbags to strengthen the ammunition depot door. Tang Yu, treat the wounds and save medicine. Whoever is infected with the mutation will be dealt with directly. The three of them were shocked when they heard this. Qin Feng murmured, Fortress, yes, I can make a simple steel frame to withstand claw attacks. He began to draw, his hands shaking but steady, and hope ignited in his eyes. Tang Yu lowered his head to sew up Lu Ting's wound. The sound of the needle threading through flesh was subtle but harsh. You, how do you know our skills? Chen Feng sat down against the wall and wiped the barrel of the gun. The oily smell filled the air. Look at his eyes. Lu Ting's scars are from the battlefield, Qin Feng's hands smell of oil, and Tang Yu's bandage techniques are professional. In this doomsday, skills are life. Share them and we will live. If you hide your secrets, you will die. After Lu Ting finished bandaging, he moved his shoulders and grinned. Boss, you are a soldier, right? That's shooting skills. I have seen special forces are not as good as you. His eyes were full of admiration, and the despair just now disappeared. Qin Feng erected the steel bars, and the sound of knocking echoed. Chen Feng, right? You saved us, but you didn't ask for anything in return. Those survivors outside have long sold their brothers for a bite to eat. Tang Yu handed over the kettle with a soft but firm voice. Yes, I have seen people in the camp biting each other for a shot of medicine. You are different. Chen Feng took a sip of water, the coldness went down his throat, and suppressed his hunger. Different? This is survival. The eternal night has just begun, meteorites have destroyed the city, and monsters are the appetizer. Supplies are exhausted, and humanity is broken. If we are not united, we will become prey. The night got deeper, the wind howled like a ghost crying, and there was constant low roaring all around. Lu Ting was guarding the door, with a dagger in his hand, and occasionally swung it out to kill a probing mutant rat. The smell of blood attracted more shadows. He looked back at Chen Feng. Boss, those rats have red eyes and are faster than dogs. How long can we last? Chen Feng closed his eyes and rested his mind, listening to the hammering sound of the fortress being reinforced. Hold on until the opportunity comes. Suddenly, a flash of light pierced the eternal night in the distant sky. It was like a meteor passing by, but it was regular Morse code, and the red light pulsated, pointing to the ruins in the north. Qin Feng dropped his tools and rushed to the door, his eyes widened. signal. Convoy signal. That's the direction of the seed bank. Lu Ting clenched his dagger and roared excitedly, seed bank. I heard that it stores human genes and technological blueprints. Restore hope. Tang Yu's face was pale, but he came closer. Look, the signal is transmitting, the fire of civilization. Chen Feng opened his eyes, stood up, and stared at the light spot. The pulse accelerated, accompanied by faint radio noise, squeezed out from the old radio in the military camp. Convoy, seed bank, asking for help, surrounded by monsters, come. The signal stopped abruptly, leaving only a static hiss, like a breathless gasp. In the darkness, low roars suddenly surged, and a group of monsters approached the military camp with red eyes. Qin Feng's face turned pale and his voice trembled. It's interrupted. They are finished. If we don't go, the chance will be gone. Lu Ting smashed his fist against the wall with a dull thud. Boss, are you taking a risk? The seed bank is a torch, light it up and we will be reborn. Tang Yu bit her lip, but the monster is too dangerous. Chen Feng stared at the north, fighting spirit ignited in his eyes, and the veins in the hand holding the gun popped out. Aren't you going? The eternal night will swallow us up. Pack up the supplies and set off before dawn. No, there will be no dawn, now. The seed bank is waiting for us to light the fire. The three of them agreed in unison, their eyes turning from shock to enthusiasm. Lu Ting murmured, I will follow you, this man is simply the king of eternal night. The fortress gate was reinforced and the sound of hammers stopped. They had backpacks on their backs, ammunition clinking, and only enough food for 3 days. Outside the door, monsters surged, and the sound of claws sounded like rain. Chen Feng took the lead and opened the way with gunshots. Charge. Civilization will never be destroyed. In the darkness, their figures disappeared into the ruins, and the afterglow of red light in the distance was like a will-o'-the-wisp, arousing endless suspense. What secret is hidden in the seed bank? The convoy asks for help. Is it a trap or a dawn? The wave of monsters has arrived. Who can survive to the end? The ruins are like an endless black ocean, swallowing up all sounds, leaving only the click of footsteps on broken glass and the deep breathing of monsters in the distance. Chen Feng took the lead, his M4 muzzle lowered to sweep away the shadows, and his boots made a wet squeaking sound as they stepped on the sticky blood mud. The pungent smell of rotten flesh and gasoline hung in the air, making your stomach churn. The weight of backpacks weighed on their shoulders, and the clinking of food for only 3 days reminded them with every step, hunger is a more ruthless hunter than monsters. Lu Ting was breathing heavily, the wound on his shoulder ached faintly, and he held the dagger tightly in his sweaty hands. He glanced at Chen Feng straight back and murmured in a low voice, Boss, this route, how do you know where there are fewer monsters? It's all pitch black, and you'll be done with just one trap. Qin Feng followed, and the toolbox hit his thigh with a muffled sound. He wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and murmured, Yes, on that street just now, I heard the sound of claws scraping the wall. It was so dense. We walked around for half an hour, just to avoid it. His steps staggered, and he stepped on a pool of green pus. The smell was so offensive that he almost retched. Behind Tang Yu, the dim light of the flashlight flickered, illuminating her pale face, and the bandage on her abdominal wound was bleeding faintly. Chen Feng, are you sure you made the right move? We are almost out of supplies. If we go around again, the monster will come before she starves to death. Chen Feng didn't stop, his voice was as low as an order, shut up and listen. He raised his hand to indicate that the 4 of them squatted down. In the distance, the screams of a group of mutated rats pierced the night sky, their claws hitting the ground like raindrops, accompanied by the wet sound of tearing bones and flesh. It was the monster biting another group of unfortunate ghosts. Lu Ting's throat rolled and his fists turned white. Damn it, we're just one step away from becoming rat food. You, how did you hear that? His eyes widened and he stared at Chen Feng's side face. His doubts just now turned into a chill. This man's ears are smarter than a dog's. Soldier instinct. There are rules in ruins, monsters love heat and the smell of blood. Let's avoid the pile of corpses and walk to the edge of the sewer. Chen Feng pointed to a crack where sewage gurgled and smelled like a cesspool. He jumped down first, and the barrel of the gun made a crisp echo when it hit the cement. When he landed, he crushed a testing cockroach monster with his foot. Green juice splashed out and stung like a scalding foot. Follow closely, the supermarket is 500 meters ahead. The supply point is there, don't waste your energy complaining. The three of them exchanged glances, and Qin Feng whispered, "Fuck, it's like the incarnation of night vision goggles." Lu Ting nodded, admiration mixed with confusion. Old mercenaries like me have to rely on darkness, you. Tang Yu bit her lip, a light of dependence flashed in her eyes, and her steps became much more steady as she kept up. The wreckage of the supermarket was like the carcass of a giant beast, the glass door was shattered on the ground, and it sounded like popcorn when stepped on. Inside, shelves were toppled, cans rolled off, and the sour smell of moldy bread and stale oil hung in the air. Chen Feng ducked into the door and locked the shadow with his gun. Clear the scene. Lu Ting is on the left, I am on the right. Qin Feng, Tang Yu searched the shelves. His instructions were like whips, and the movements of the three of them were synchronized instantly. Suddenly, two infected people sprang out from behind the shelves. They were once humans, but now their skin was as gray as wax, their eyes were cloudy and green, their mouths were dripping with foamy blood, and they were making gurgling throat sounds, like drowning ghosts. They pounced on Lu Ting, their claws scraping the air with an ear-piercing hiss. Lu Ting's heart sank. Damn. So fast. He instinctively retreated, his shoulder hurt, he swung the dagger in the air, and the infected rushed towards him. The smell of rotten meat rushed straight into his nose, causing his stomach acid to rise. Back off. Chen Feng shot him in the head, the bullet penetrated his skull, and his brains sprayed on the shelves like watermelon juice, splashing onto Lu Ting's face, making it hot and sticky. Another infected person turned around and attacked Chen Feng. Chen Feng dodged sideways and pressed his knees against his abdomen. There was a muffled sound of bone cracks. Then he slashed with a dagger and blood spurted out from his throat. When he died, his body twitched and the smell of urine filled the air. The whole process took only 3 seconds. Chen Feng's gun barrel was still smoking and there was no sweat on his face. Lu Ting stood blankly, his dagger hanging down, staring at the corpse on the ground, his voice trembling. "Boss, you didn't fire a second shot and you just solved it? That claw, I almost got torn off." His eyes were as round as bells, his muscles relaxed, and the panic just now turned into fanatical worship. Qin Feng found a row of cans and picked them up with trembling hands. "Oh my God, the coordination of the gun and dagger is amazing. The infected person's skin is as thick as rubber, can you break it with just one scratch?" Tang Yu covered her mouth to avoid the pool of blood, shock flashed in her eyes. "Chen Feng, are you hurt? The blood smells so good. Concentrate on the search. 10 cans, 20 batteries, half a barrel of fuel, the oil smells pure and is enough." Chen Feng counted the items with a calm voice. He tore open a can of meat sauce and distributed it to each person. The salty smell entered his throat and suppressed his hunger. The three of them devoured their food. Lu Ting licked the bottom of the can and murmured, "1 week supplies, boss, your route is perfect. This supermarket should have been a dead end." But there was still doubt in his eyes. How many secrets does this man hide? As they evacuated, the monster roared and approached, making a sound of claws. Chen Feng stood in the rear, retreating and firing, knocking down 3 pursuers with 3 shots. The bullet shells clinked to the ground, burning the air. Qin Feng was carrying fuel and panting. "There are 20 rounds less ammunition, can you hold on?" Chen Feng snorted, "We can reach the factory." The abandoned factory is like a steel tomb, with huge rusted doors half open, and the wind carries the dusty smell of engine oil and cement ash. There are towering chimneys with dark shadows, and steel bars scattered on the ground like broken bones. Qin Feng's eyes lit up as soon as he entered the door. Here. The concrete wall is thick and the steel bars are all over the floor. I can reinforce it into a fortress. He dropped his tools, grabbed the steel bars and struck them, and the clanging sound echoed like a war drum. But the scratching sound of claws outside the door was approaching, the mutated dog's red eyes flashed, and the saliva dripped and corroded the ground. Quick! Chen Feng suppressed the door, gunshots rang out repeatedly, the monster's head exploded, green blood poured like rain, and the smell filled the factory. Lu Ting rushed forward and used a dagger to help cut off a forelimb. The tearing sound of bone and flesh being separated made him growl excitedly. But boss, they are getting fiercer and fiercer. Tang Yu screamed, and a rat monster rushed towards her ankle. She kicked it away, but was choked by the dust. Qin Feng was in a hurry, sparks flew from the welded joints of the steel bars, and his sweat evaporated into mist. The door can't withstand it. The monster's claws are so strong that the iron is bent. His voice was desperate, foreboding that the dream of the fortress was shattered. Lu Ting gasped, "Boss, move out, this place is rotten." Tang Yu's face turned pale, the risk of infection is high, the dust is full of spores. Chen Feng glanced at the map and clicked with his finger, weld the 3 walls and blocked the door with sandbags. Qin Feng, you are an engineer, I believe you. He threw out the ropes to tie the steel bars, his movements as skillful as a machine. Qin Feng was stunned, stared at Chen Feng's back, and murmured, "You know how to weld." But in the sparks, he steadied his hand, the steel frame was quickly formed, the concrete blocks were stacked, and the thumping sound shook the ground. The monsters outside the door hit like thunder, the iron door was dented, and dust was flying. Half an hour later, the shelter began to take shape, the steel door was welded shut, and the simple alarm was coiled with battery wires, buzzing and ready to go. Qin Feng wiped his sweat and his eyes widened. It's done. When the alarm sounded, all the monsters within 100 meters were scared away. I had only drawn it on the drawing before, and your command was perfect. Lu Ting patted him on the shoulder and grinned, the kid is awesome. The boss has a vicious eye. Tang Yu checked the wound, but suddenly frowned and pressed Lu Ting's shoulder. Wait, this wound, the edges are black, and green threads are spreading. In the early stage of infection. Lu Ting's face suddenly changed, and he looked down. There were faint green blisters on his shoulder flesh, stinging like fire, and there was a faint stench. Fuck. When? I attacked you in close combat. He hit the ground with his fist, making a muffled thud, and panic flashed in his eyes. Cut it off. I have half a life left. Qin Feng took a step back, his voice trembling. The infected person, we have to isolate him. Tang Yu, is there enough medicine? Tang Yu gritted her teeth and took out the anti-inflammatory knife and gauze from the medical bag. Under the light, her hands were as steady as a rock. Chen Feng, help me hold him down. Cut off the green flesh and stop the bleeding and cauterization. Chen Feng nodded, stepped forward and locked Lu Ting's arms, using an iron-like force to prevent Lu Ting from moving. The sizzling sound of the knife cutting into the flesh was heard, green pus spurted out, and the rotten smell was like shit. Lu Ting roared like a wild beast, ah! It hurts me to death. The flesh and blood rolled around, and hot blood splashed onto Chen Feng's hand, which was as hot as boiling oil. Qin Feng looked away and murmured, damn, that's too cruel. You guys, really dare to strike. Tang Yu's red-hot dagger burned the wound, and the smell of burnt meat filled the air. Lu Ting fainted, and when he woke up, his face was ashen, staring at Chen Feng. Boss, thank you. If you hadn't pressed, I would have broken free and destroyed myself. Your hands are as strong as iron. His admiration deepened, and his doubts turned into blind obedience. Late at night, the fire flickered in the shelter, a small pile of scrap wood burned, the wood crackled and crackled, the warmth dispelling the cold. Chen Feng was guarding the first shift. The radio was hissing with static. He tuned the frequency and analyzed the northern signal. The Morse code points to the seed bank, 50 kilometers away. There are gene seeds and technological blueprints rebuilding the fire. The convoy is surrounded by monsters. The call for help has been interrupted, but the location is locked. Qin Feng came closer, his eyes shining. Seed bank. Biological samples, blueprints. If we light the torch, we can restart civilization. Lu Ting bandaged the new injury and gritted his teeth. Boss, rush. But 50 kilometers away, monster nests are everywhere. Tang Yu handed over the water, his voice soft. The risk is high. But with you, we survived. Chen Feng stood up and pointed to the depths of the factory. The truck is over there. Military Hummer, the engine is broken. Qin Feng, fix it. If you have enough fuel, turn it into a mobile fortress. Qin Feng rushed over, tools jingled, and took off the hood. The smell of engine oil hit his nostrils. The crankshaft is broken, but there are spare parts. He welded wires and replaced parts. Sparks flew and sweat poured down. An hour later, the engine roared and shook the ground, black smoke billowed, and the tires crunched against the cement. Lu Ting jumped on the roof rack M4 and shouted excitedly, "Mobile fortress. Boss, this is a great idea." Qin Feng wiped his hands and stared at Chen Feng. "How do you know the location of the truck?" "There is no mark on the factory map." Tang Yu loaded the supplies and stacked the cans, with doubts in his eyes. "Yes, you seem to have been here." Chen Feng started the engine and roared, "Let's get going. Load supplies and have a week's battery life. Seed bank, wait for us." The Hummer rushed out of the reinforced door. The alarm buzzed to scare away the monsters. The tires ran over the corpses, and blood and mud spattered. In the darkness, they headed north, supplies clanking, and the roar of engines covering up the low roar. The Hummer engine roared like a trapped beast, and the headlights pierced the night, revealing 5 figures stumbling closer. Their clothes were like tattered sacks, their faces were as sunken as skulls, their eyes reflected the green light of hunger in the beam of light. They held rusty iron pipes and kitchen knives in their hands, and their footsteps crunched on the gravel. The leading strong man had a full beard, his teeth were yellow and black like rotten teeth, and he had bad breath when he grinned. "Brother. Stop the car." We heard the sound of the engine and crawled out from the shabby fortress of the factory. "You have oil and food, right? Share it and help each other in the night." His voice was as hoarse as sawwood. The 4 people behind him nodded, their eyes glued to the pile of cans in the Humvee bucket, and the sound of swallowing could be heard clearly. Suddenly, a human scream came from a distance outside the shelter, heartbreaking, mixed with panicked footsteps. "Help! We have food. Don't leave us." The voice was crying, accompanied by the flicker of the torch. Lu Ting raised his head and pointed his gun. "Boss, man. The other survivors, they smell so hungry, could they?" Chen Feng stepped on the brakes, the engine idled and roared, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. "Stop. Listen to what they want." The shouts became more urgent, and figures in the shadows approached, 5 or 6 ragged ghosts, green lights flashing in their eyes. Hunger, or something uglier. Chen Feng lightly touched the steering wheel with his fingers, stuck out the gun barrel from the car window, and said coldly, "Back 10 meters. How do you know about the factory fortress?" Lu Ting set up the machine gun on the roof of the car and aimed at the leader's head. The dull pain in his shoulder made him grit his teeth. "Boss, these bastards are blind. Green eyes, hungry ghost reincarnation. Don't believe it, just stab him if you get close." Qin Feng held the toolbox tightly, sweat dripping down his nose. "They smell of blood. Did they just kill someone?" Tang Yu pressed the medical bag, and the abdominal wound bandage was slightly leaking. "Chen Feng, be careful, there are many of them." The bearded leader raised his hand and smirked, but moved forward, and the iron pipe banged on the ground. "Hey, the fortress door is welded like an iron barrel. It took us half an hour to get in. The alarm sounded inside to scare away the monsters, and we picked up some steel bars. But you left, leaving a pile of corpses and fire ashes. Brother, can you give us some cans and a drink of water for each of us? We have information, there is a tide of corpses in the north, and the seed bank road is blocked. His accomplices snickered, looking at the fuel barrels, greedy like a hungry wolf staring at a sheep. The air was filled with the stench of their feces, urine, and sweat, mixed with Hummer exhaust, which was disgusting. Chen Feng narrowed his eyes and slowly got out of the car, M4 across his chest. Information is exchanged for supplies. 1 can for each person, get out. He threw out a can of meat sauce, which rolled to his feet with a clanking sound. He picked up the beard, tore it open and licked it wildly, and his green eyes became brighter. Good brother. But your Hummer, is it full of gas? Lend us a ride and spit out all the information. There is a convoy signal in the seed bank, but the monster lair blocks the road. We bypassed it and lost our brother. The accomplices approached, raised the iron pipe, and laughed in a low voice. Yes, share. Everyone is equal in Yongye, the 4 of you, enough supplies for 5, no, enough for 10. Lu Ting roared, jumped off the roof of the car, the dagger flashed coldly. Fuck. Why are you pretending to be cowards? I smell the blood on your hands, you just killed people and collected ashes in the fortress. Qin Feng backed away and murmured, they broke down the door, our fortress. Tang Yu held the pistol and said in a trembling voice, Chen Feng, they want to steal the car. Beard threw cans, smashed the iron pipes on the ground, and roared, equality is nothing. The strong men of Yongye will get supplies. You have oil and guns, we will starve for 3 weeks, brothers, come on. Grab the Hummer, let's go to the seed bank. The 5 people rushed out like wolves, the iron pipes whizzed across the sky, the kitchen knives reflected the cold light of the car lights, and their footsteps splashed wet clods in the mud. 2 of them circled behind and attacked the Hummer, and the other slashed at Qin Feng's toolbox with a knife, causing sparks to fly. The leader went straight to Chen Feng, smashed the iron pipe on his head, and cried like a ghost, die, the oil belongs to me. The team instantly fell into despair. Lu Ting's shoulder hurt due to laceration, and the dagger blocked one tube, which shocked his mouth and numbed him. Damn. 5 against 4, they are tough, boss. Qin Feng smashed the toolbox, backed up and hit the car door, his voice trembling, Chen Feng. There are many of them, so they save ammunition. Tang Yu screamed, and the knife approached her leg. The medical bag fell, the medicine bottle rolled and shattered, and white powder rose up and choked her nose. The monster's roar sounded from a distance, as if it was caused by the fight, and the sound of claws scraping gradually approached. Beard laughed wildly, surrender. The supplies are all ours, otherwise we will chop them up and feed them to rats. Lu Ting challenged the 3 on the left. Tang Yu, cover Qin Feng. Chen Feng's order was like thunder. The M4 fired 3 times. The bullets ripped through the air and hissed. They hit the knee of a flanker. The bones were broken and blood spurted out. He screamed like a pig and fell to the ground. The smell of blood exploded. Lu Ting roared, the pain turning into anger. The dagger arced like lightning and pierced the first man's throat. Blood sprayed on his face, hot and sticky. Come on. I have cut green meat. Are you afraid of you? He turned and elbowed the second man's nose. Bones cracked and brains mixed with nosebleeds spattered to the ground. The man covered his face and wailed, and the iron pipe clanked on the ground. The third person slashed with a kitchen knife, but Lu Ting blocked it. Sparks flew out, and the dagger stabbed his lower abdomen. His intestines slipped out like a wet snake, and the smell filled the air. He growled, "Boss, these beasts are so weak." Chen Feng's eyes turned cold and he raised his gun slightly. Qin Feng, activate the alarm coil, the coil of wires at the edge of the factory, connect the battery, and energize the trap. He dodged to avoid the pipe and hit his knee on Beard's belly, making a dull sound like a drum. Beard bent over and retched acid water. Qin Feng was stunned for half a second, and his eyes widened. Trap. Boss, did you set it up earlier? He rushed towards the battery pile, his hands flying to connect the wires. Sparks crackled, buzzing current sounded, the remaining steel mesh of the factory was instantly electrified, and the blue arc jumped like a will-o'-the-wisp. After Qin Feng finished wiring, the steel net was energized. When the first enemy who attacked the net touched it, electric arcs flew through his body, his muscles spasmed like convulsions, and the smell of burnt meat hit his nostrils. His screams turned into screams. Ah! Electricity, electrocution. He convulsed and fell to the ground, black smoke rose, and his body was charred and twitching. Qin Feng's eyes widened and he murmured, "It's done." "Boss, how do you know that the factory has a backup power grid?" "This electricity is 500 volts. Tang Yu fired to cover, the bullet grazed the enemy's shoulder, and blood blossomed. Her voice trembled with ecstasy. "Chen Feng, I'm crazy." They retreat. The battle ended within 2 minutes, with 5 corpses scattered on the ground and a pool of blood forming a river, making it sticky and sticky when stepped on. Lu Ting gasped, his dagger dripping with blood, and stared at Chen Feng's back with a trembling voice. "Boss. I won the 3-on-1 challenge, but you kill the leader in one fell swoop." That look in his eyes looked like he had seen a ghost. His admiration burned like fire, and he forgot about his shoulder injury. Qin Feng checked the body and took out a portable generator. The smell of diesel was pure, and his eyes were as bright as stars. "Generator. Theirs is enough for a Hummer to increase its weight for a week. There are also 2 kitchen knives turned into daggers, bullets, they don't have guns." Tang Yu bandaged Lu Tingxin's scratches, his hands trembling with excitement. "Chen Feng, your command was perfect. We were almost wiped out just now." Chen Feng counted the ammunition and found that 15 rounds of 5.56 were lost. He frowned slightly and said, "There are 265 ammunition left. Search the corpses and find 2 barrels of fuel and 5 packs of compressed biscuits." He pointed to the pile of corpses and said in a cold voice, "Listen, from now on, there is an iron law of discipline, betrayal and looting, death. Infighting within the team, slit the throat with a knife. Supplies are shared by one person, and hands are broken off by theft. Seeds in front of the bank, there is no forgiveness." The 3 of them nodded, and Lu Ting fisted his palms. "Boss is right. Yong Yi, human nature is uglier than monsters, this bunch of garbage proves it." Qin Feng carried the generator into the car and murmured, "I will follow you." Tang Yu handed out the new biscuits, and his eyes were as tight as vines. "With you, we are the torch." The bearded leader vomited blood and got up with fear in his eyes. He grabbed the fallen iron pipe and threw it at Chen Feng. "You, monster." Chen Feng sidestepped, unsheathed his dagger like a poisonous snake, and slashed his throat. Blood sprayed out like mist. The bearded leader covered his neck and knelt down. Blood bubbles appeared in his grunt, and his eyes were as round as a dead fish. "You, our family." He fell down, his body twitching, and urine filled the air. Chen Feng crushed his hand with his foot and the bones cracked. He looked coldly at Yu Dang. "Kneel down and hand over your weapon. Cleaning up the battlefield is like a slaughterhouse, fuel is poured into the Hummer's fuel tank, and the gurgling sound shakes the body." The bodies were dragged into the ditch, the iron pipes were smashed to cover up the blood stains, and the rotten stench gradually dissipated. Chen Feng started the engine, roaring like a lion, and the Hummer ran over the blood and mud and headed north to the seed bank. The lights inside the car were flickering, cans were stacked and clinking, and Tang Yu whispered, "Materials are under strict control, and the battery life is stable for a week." Lu Ting was alerted on the roof of the car, shouting in the wind, 50 kilometers ahead, the signal is close. The Hummer engine roared like a wild beast, the tires crunched against the gravel, and the headlights pierced the darkness like two sharp swords, illuminating the red-eyed waves ahead. Countless zombies dragged their rotting limbs, their footsteps were like a surging tide, the slippery grunting sounds of rotting flesh rubbing against the ground were mixed with low roars, and the fishy wind blew in. Mixed with the stench of rotten intestines and pus and blood, the carriage instantly filled the carriage, making Tang Yu feel sick in his stomach. Writhing, she covered her mouth tightly. Chen Feng, this is thousands. The red eyes are like stars, can we collide with each other? Her voice trembled like a candle in the wind, the gauze in the medical bag was soaked with sweat, and her abdominal injury ached faintly. Lu Ting was lying behind the machine gun on the roof of the car, blood oozing from the new gauze from his shoulder wound, and howling in the wind, "Boss!" The elite zombies ahead, 3 meters tall, with claws like sickles. They are blocking the middle of the road, and the Hummer cannot be broken. He tightened his finger on the trigger, and the bullet shot out with a hiss, hitting a red eye and exploding with pus. Qin Feng hugged the toolbox tightly, his face was as white as paper, and beads of sweat fell on the map. The fuel gauge dropped 2 bars, the battery shook. "Boss, the density of the corpse tide is too high, 50 kilometers will become a hell. We don't have enough ammunition, where is the trap?" His voice was full of despair, his hands were shaking, and the rotten smell in his nose was like a needle pricking his brain. Chen Feng's eyes were as cold as a knife. He turned the steering wheel and the Hummer accelerated into a sprint. The tires raised blood and mud and splashed into the first wave of corpses. Rotting corpses scattered like rag dolls, bones cracked and crackled, brains sprayed out and the car windows crackled, and red eyes flickered in the light like will-o'-the-wisps. But the elite zombies pounced, the muscles of the 3-meter-long body bulged like iron tumors, and the claws swung down to dent the Humvee's front. Sparks flew out, the metal twisted and screamed, and the body shook violently. Qin Feng hit the car door and groaned, "It's over. The armor can't hold up, there are 10 elites. We are dead. It's gone." Lu Ting's machine gun jammed and he cursed, "Boss, retreat, take a detour." Tang Yu screamed, and a broken hand reached through the crack of the car window, scratching her arm with bloody marks. When she shook it off, she cried, "It hurts, Chen Feng, the monster is coming." The tide of corpses pressed in like a black wall. The Hummer was surrounded. The rotten corpses climbed onto the roof of the car. The weight made the suspension creak. Their claws smashed against the glass and shattered into spider webs. The fishy wind poured into the car, making it suffocating. More red eyes appeared in the distance, the horizon rolled like a sea of blood, and the low roars merged into thunder, shaking the earth. The team was in a desperate situation. Lu Ting stabbed the rotting corpse on the roof of the car wildly with his dagger. His hands were bloody and sticky, "Boss." The Hummer got stuck in the mud and the tires slipped. Qin Feng murmured, "The supplies, we all lost and we can't get out." Tang Yu bandaged his wounds, his hands shaking like leaves, "We are going to become corpse food." Chen Feng roared, "Lu Ting, jump off the Qin elite." Qin Feng, homemade flask, 3 seconds and 10, slow down the back wave. Tang Yu, first aid to Lu Ting's injury, battery-powered gun barrel, electric shock to the enemy. Hummer, I hit. His voice sounded like thunder, he stepped on the accelerator, the Hummer engine roared like a lion, dragged out of the mud, knocked away dozens of rotten corpses, and the blood mist exploded like fireworks. Lu Ting's eyes widened, and he was filled with ecstasy. "Boss, jump down. Challenge the elites one-on-one." "Damn." Without hesitation, he jumped from the roof of the car and rolled around. His daggers and kitchen knives shone coldly, and he pounced on the nearest elite zombie. The 3-meter giant beast's claws smashed down, and the ground cracked and rocks flew. Lu Ting dodged like a ghost, and the dagger pierced the rotten flesh of his knee. The bones cracked and broke. The elite knelt down and roared, his red eyes glowing with blood. Lu Ting roared, "Come on. I've cut green skin before, this thing is so weak." He spun around and jumped up, cutting off his arm with the kitchen knife. The severed limb flew out and hit the ground with blood splashing everywhere. The stench exploded. The elite fell to the ground and twitched. He cut open the brain with a knife, and the brain collapsed like tofu. Qin Feng was stunned for half a second. He threw himself at the battery and scrapped strips of cloth. His hands flew around and tied bottles with gasoline. The sparks ignited the fuse. Flask, boss, what are you thinking? Can this delay thousands of corpses? He smashed the car window and threw the first bottle, arcing to the ground and bursting into flames. The flames jumped 10 meters like a fire dragon, devouring dozens of corpses. The smell of burnt meat hit his nostrils, and the screams were piercing. The wave of corpses stagnated behind the wave, and black smoke billowed across the sky. Qin Feng's eyes widened and he murmured, "It's done." The wall of fire blocked the road, and the red eyes were scurrying. He threw 5 bottles in a row, and the sea of fire spread out. The heat wave roasted the body of the red Hummer, and the corpses burned into piles of charcoal, and ashes flew like snow. Tang Yu gritted her teeth and climbed up, grabbing the battery wire and connecting it to the barrel of Lu Ting's radio gun. The electric arc was buzzing and ready to go off. A rotting corpse climbed out of the window. She shocked her claws with blue arcs and flew away. The body spasmed and was charred and flew away. The smell of smoke filled her nose. "Chen Feng, I can do it." "Lu Ting, hold on." Lu Ting had killed 3 elites and was covered in blood and flesh. The shoulder wound was torn open and blood was dripping, but he laughed wildly. "Boss, look at me." The 5th head. The elite rushed at him. He rolled to avoid it, crossed his daggers and cut open the abdominal cavity. His intestines slid out like a black snake, sticky and grunting when he stepped on it. He jumped and pierced his eye sockets, his red eyes exploded with juice, and the giant corpse fell to the ground with a crash, shaking the earth. Under the control of Chen Feng, the Hummer was like a giant steel beast, smashing into the road of blood. The front of the car was dented but the engine did not turn off, and the tires crushed bones and cracked like popcorn. Chen Feng's M4 shot from the window, a precise headshot. The bullet hissed through the brain, and the red eyes went out one after another. "Qin Feng, save the flasks, keep 10. Lu Ting, get in the car." Lu Ting gasped and threw himself back on the roof of the car, blood dripping from his body, his eyes staring. Chen Feng's back glowed. "Boss, your command is amazing. The claws of the elites are as hard as steel. I singled out 5 of them. Without you, we would have been buried in a pile of corpses." His worship was like burning flames, scratching and forgetting pain, and his fanaticism and blind obedience deepened. The sea of fire slowed down, and the Hummer broke out of the encirclement. In the rearview mirror, the tide of corpses burned into a sea of fire, black smoke covered the sky, and red eyes were scattered like stars. After the dead silence in the car, cheers erupted. Qin Feng counted 7 flasks left, his voice trembling and excited. Time traveled. "Boss, 50 kilometers shortened by 20, the signal of the seed bank is stronger. But the supplies, the bullets are 50 rounds short, the fuel is down by 4, and the batteries are broken by 3. Tang Yu bandaged Lu Ting, the needle and thread were flying, and his hands were shaking with ecstasy. "When you jumped down, my heart stopped. Chen Feng, perfect reversal, just now we were so desperate that we fell into the abyss." Lu Ting punched the roof of the car. "Boss, iron law, help. The tide of corpses is stronger than the scum." With a cold look in your eyes, you turned into a torch. The Hummer slowed down, its engine panting like a human being, and drove into an abandoned gas station. The sign was crooked and rusted, the oil pump was overturned, and the residual smell of gasoline mixed with rancid smell in the air. Chen Feng braked and the headlights swept across. 2 barrels of diesel rolled down the corner, rusty screws were scattered in the parts box, and tires were stacked like a hill. "Supply, reinforce." He got out of the car, and the M4 swept away the hidden corpses. 3 shots hit the head, and pus and blood splashed on the wall. Qin Feng pounced on the oil barrel, his eyes as bright as a wolf, pure diesel. 2 barrels are enough to strengthen the Hummer's armor, and the engine will be worry-free for a week. He dragged the barrel and poured it in. The grunt shook the car body, parts flew around and welded the car's front dent, sparks crackled, the steel plate thickened and creaked and bent, and the new armor was like a tank shell. Lu Ting alerted the surroundings, blood dripping from his dagger. "Boss, there is no one at this station, lucky. We have more than half of the supplies. The flask saved my life just now, it was worth it." Tang Yu distributed compressed biscuits, chewed the dry dough, and depended on him like an iron chain in his eyes. "There are 8 cans and 5 packs of food left, and half of the medical supplies. With you, the battery life is stable." Qin Feng connected the generator for trial operation, and the buzzing electric light illuminated the map. He suddenly froze, and his fingertips trembled. "Boss, ahead, in the darkness, roaring. Not stragglers, but a tide of corpses. Red eyes like the sea, blocking the road." On the distant horizon, countless red lights flickered like stars hanging upside down. The sound of carrion dragging was like a surging tide, and the fishy wind blew against the face, shaking the body of the Hummer. Chen Feng tightened his grip on the steering wheel, his eyes burning with fighting spirit. "Accelerate. Trap, rush." The night is getting deeper and deeper. In the gas station where the team is camping, the iron door is welded shut, and the dim light of the brazier is swaying, reflecting the tired face. Chen Feng set up the radio and connected it to the portable generator. The buzzing current stabilized and the static noise was harsh. A weak female voice penetrated. "Seed Bank Guardian Lin Yuyan. Signal reception. Are you a convoy? Torch of civilization. I survived, mastered the seed activation technology, and the gene bank blueprint is complete. But the road to the monster lair is blocked, the elite beast kings are entrenched, the walls are broken, please help." The voice was intermittent, mixed with the ghost cry of claws scratching metal, and the background roared like thunder. The team froze, Qin Feng's eyes widened, and his fingers were frozen on the knob. "Lin Yuyan? Biologist. There is someone in the seed bank. Boss, she said the secret to start, shall we send a signal?" His excitement was like electric shock, and the toolbox trembled. Lu Ting held the dagger in his fist, his muscles bulging. "The Guardian is alive. The monster lair. I'll kill the king. Chen Feng, charge." Tang Yu pressed the medical bag, her voice trembling with joy. "The torch of civilization, she is hope. Repair the equipment, contact us." Chen Feng nodded, dismantled the radio, Qin Feng auxiliary wiring, sparks jumped, the parts jingled together, and the new antenna stretched like a spear. The radio buzzed steadily. Chen Feng pressed the button, and his voice was deep. "Seed Bank, this is Chen Feng's convoy. The Humvees are heading north, passing through the zombie tide, and the supplies are running. Confirm the location, the nest information. The torch is lit, and the world is gathered." After sending, Lin Yuyan was surrounded by static electricity. The response was hurried. "Received. The lair is 50 meters deep, the Beast King's claws are like drills, and the acid rots the walls. Steel is needed to strengthen the fortress, and I will pass on the blueprint for the Evernight Torch. Be careful, the natural disaster Beast Tide Alliance." The signal was cut off, the roar in the background was deafening, and the sound of claws was like a hammer hitting the heart. Qin Feng repaired the equipment, hugged his knees and murmured, "Boss, the world is getting bigger, Lin Yuyan, the seeds are secret. But the nest warns, the way forward, the Beast King." His eyes flickered with fear and turned to war. Lu Ting sharpened his knife, sparks flying. "Boss, send a signal to the survivors. We are the vanguard, kill the Beast King." Tang Yu divided the biscuits and locked eyes with Chen Feng. "There is a blueprint for the torch, touching, civilization will never be destroyed." Chen Feng stared at the map, the nest circled in red, with flames of war in his eyes. repair for 2 hours, set off before dawn. Destroy the nest. The Humvee engine roared like a beast gathering momentum, the tires rolled over the ruins and the gravel crackled. The newly welded armor reflected the afterglow of the brazier, as cold and hard as a tank shell. Chen Feng stared at the red circle on the map and ordered in an iron voice, "Let's go. The nest is 30 kilometers away. The Hummer is inserted directly into the perimeter. Lu Ting is on guard on the roof, Qin Feng is monitoring the signal, and Tang Yu is supplying ammunition. Turn on the radio and listen to Lin Yuyan." The team nodded, his face was tired but his fighting spirit was as bright as a candle. The brazier was kicked out, the iron door was pushed open with a creaking weld, the cold wind of the night and the rotten smell rushed in, the Hummer rushed out, the headlights and swords tore through the darkness, and a black shadow loomed on the distant horizon, like the mouth of a living hell. 50 kilometers of road shortened by 20, the embers and black smoke of the sea of dead bodies still lingered, the Hummer accelerated, the wind howled in my ears, and the accelerator buzzed and shook the body. Qin Feng hugged the toolbox, and the radio was piercing with static. "Boss, Lin Yuyan has been disconnected for half an hour, the information about the lair is 50 meters deep, and the Beast King's acid rots the walls. She asked for steel. Do we have enough welded plates for the Hummer?" His voice was filled with doubts, his fingers tapped on the instrument, beads of sweat fell on the map, the fuel gauge was 4 bars steady, and the 17 batteries jingled. Tang Yu was bandaging a new injury on his arm, blood was oozing from the gauze, and the half-broken medical bottle had a bitter taste in his nose. "The fortress is reinforced by steel, but the nest has claws like drills. We didn't provide enough medical treatment." Lu Ting's shoulder was injured and bleeding. Her eyes locked on Chen Feng's back, her dependence tightened like an iron chain, the compressed biscuits were chewed dry, and her stomach churned. Lu Ting lay on the roof of the car behind the machine gun. His dagger and kitchen knife were dripping with blood, and his shoulder injury was as hot as fire. However, he laughed wildly, "Boss, the king of beasts. I will challenge the 5 elites alone. This thing has more background. I will kill all the sentries." His muscles bulged in the wind, his eyes were as red as a war ghost, and his worship of Chen Feng was like a burning flame. As the Hummer approached the 30-kilometer mark, the terrain dropped suddenly, and the headlights illuminated the abyss, a monster lair like a maw of a giant beast, a 50-meter-deep pit with black holes, corroded rock walls at the edges, dripping acid and white smoke, and a fishy and sour smell that hit the nose like a sulfur hell. The red eyes in the pit are as dense as a galaxy, mutated beasts roar and thunder, claws scrape against the stone walls, and metal sounds harsh. Elite beast sentries patrol 3 meters high. Their carapace is as hard as iron knobs, and their tail spines are dripping with green poison. The air is sticky, hot, and suffocating. The Hummer stopped at the edge of the pit, the tires gripped the road and gravel splashed, the team got out of the car, and the M4 cocked with a crisp click. Qin Feng swept the bottom of the pit, his face was as white as paper, and his legs were soft and he knelt down. "Boss, this is not a tide of corpses, but a nest. The Beast King is entrenched, there are 20 sentries, the acid pool is boiling, the walls are melted and the steel bars are exposed. The electronic door is locked at the bottom of the pit, the Hummer cannot go down, the slope is too steep, we are trapped, go in and become beast food." His voice trembled like a fallen leaf in the wind, and the toolbox hit the ground. Lin Yuyan was buzzing on the radio, calling for help intermittently. "The nest is sealed, the Beast King wakes up, quickly." The roar in the background was deafening, and the red eyes in the pit turned, staring at the convoy, like a sea of blood. Tang Yu covered her mouth and backed away, her abdomen hurt like a knife. "The density of monsters is over 1,000, medical treatment is incomplete and poisonous injuries are incurable, we charge. Dead end." Lu Ting held the dagger, his hand trembled for half a second, and his muscles tensed. "Boss, the sentry is coming. The tail spine is green, elite carapace bullets, 20 duel. I have a cracked shoulder, I can't bear it." The wind blew up at the edge of the pit, filling the air with acid mist that choked my lungs and made me cough. The sentinel beast jumped out of the abyss first. Its 3-meter-long body smashed into the ground and cracked rocks. Its claws drilled into the rock wall and corroded. Green liquid splashed out as its tail thorns waved. Black smoke rose from the charred turf. His red eyes locked on Lu Ting, and he roared like thunder that shook his chest, and the sour smell hit his face. The team retreated, and Qin Feng screamed, "Retreat!" The Hummer turned around and circled the nest. Tang Yu grabbed the medical bag and bumped back. "Chen Feng, despair, the nest is like a living tomb, we can't break it even if we lose all our supplies." Lu Ting blocked the front, his dagger flashing coldly, "I'm on top. But the Beast King has roared, and the bottom of the pit is boiling. Boss, order." The desperate situation overwhelmed the top, and the black hole swallowed up hope. Lin Yuyan's voice was cut off, and the night became colder. The brazier crackled, the wind roared in the night, the radio echoed, the team sat around, the supplies were stacked and jingled, and the new Humvee armor shone coldly. Red eyes loomed in the distance, growls approached, knocking on the door like a new challenge. Chen Feng holds the M4 and has an iron rule, the seed bank must light the torch. Lu Ting's eyes were as wide as copper bells, and he burst into ecstasy, "Boss! Sneak into a duel with the 5 weakest armors. Cut off the tail at the knees to avoid it." Your eyes turned cold. "It's a trick. Go ahead." He grabbed the rope and jumped from the top of the Humvee. He landed and rolled in a circle to avoid the claw attack of the first sentry. The ground cracked and rocks flew. The acid splashed on his boots and smoked, and the stench filled his nose. He lowered his body and dodged his left wing. His dagger and kitchen knife were like ghosts, piercing the rotten armor of the knee of the first beast. The bones snapped. The giant beast knelt down and roared, its red eyes glowing with blood. The tail stinger swept towards him. He spun around and jumped away. His tail hit the edge of the pit and the gravel flew like shrapnel. Lu Ting roared, "Weak armor." The boss was right, the second head. He pounced on him, crossed his daggers and slashed his abdomen, the green intestines slid out and stomped on him, and his red eyes burst with juice and he fell to the ground twitching. Qin Feng was stunned. Lu Ting, solo rappelling. "Arc network, I'll do it." He dragged 17 battery wires, buzzing blue arcs rushed around the edge of the pit, the power grid was like a thunder whip pumping acid mist, the sentry hit the net and convulsed, blackened and flew away, the smoke smelled bitter and sour, and the reinforcements in the pit were stagnant and scurrying around. Tang Yu gritted his teeth and threw the flask. The arc of fire exploded in the air. The flames swallowed up the 3 beasts on the right wing. The smell of burnt armor hit his nostrils, and the scream was as harsh as a ghost crying, "Chen Feng, the wall of fire is stable. Lu Ting, let's watch you slash wildly." Lu Ting has been beheaded 4 times, his body is covered with green blood and slimy, and his shoulder is injured and cracked. His blood flowed hotly, but he laughed wildly, "Boss, iron rule, God. The 5th head and tail are stabbed." The tail thorn was swung close, he rolled low, chopped off the tail root with a kitchen knife, and the green liquid fountain splashed on the ground and burned the hole. Lu Ting gasped and pulled on the top of the rope, staring at Chen Feng with glowing eyes like a man of adoration. "Boss, you didn't go down into the pit, but you knew that you were weak at the knees, and the sentry was clear. Without your plan, I would have been poisoned to death." His voice trembled with excitement, and his muscles trembled not in pain, but in awe. Chen Feng nodded, M4 accurately shot the red eye in the pit, the bullets hissed and hit the head in succession. 3 shots and 3 beasts fell, and the green mist exploded in the brain. "Qin Feng, go down to the pit to break the door lock and rappel down the Hummer." Qin Feng's legs went weak, he held the toolbox and slid, and choked in the acid mist when he landed. "Boss. The electronic door is half corroded, the circuit is burnt, the lair is 50 deep, I have 3 minutes." The beast at the bottom of the pit roared closer, its claws scraped like a hammer, and its heart beat like a drum. Before he rushed to the door, the screwdriver was flying to remove the panel, sparks were crackling, and the acid droplets were sizzling on the panel. He dodged the green liquid and burned his hands, which were red and swollen, and growled, "The password disk is broken." The blueprint was passed down by Lin Yuyan, and the torch is unlocked. His fingers shook the wiring, buzzing current flowed, the red light of the door lock flashed green, the gears creaked and turned, the steel door slowly opened and cold wind poured out, mixed with the fragrance of plants. The light inside the door flickered faintly, and Lin Yuyan rushed out. The biologist's white robe was stained with blood, and her hair was messy. She held a laser pointer and a test tube of green liquid in her hands. She held a gun with trembling hands. "Convoy, Chen Feng. Are you breaking the nest?" The sentry's roar stopped. "The Beast King is still awake, come in." Her eyes widened and scanned the team, her gaze locked on Chen Feng, and she was shocked and grateful. "The radio listens to your iron voice, time travel. The zombies hit the elite, now sneak into the clearing team. The fortress wall is cracked, the acid is melting, and I am alone in the seed vault." The team enters, and the steel door is welded to death. Qin Feng gasps, "Miss Lin, the door lock is fast. The boss has a plan, and the sentry is like cutting vegetables." Lu Ting wiped the green blood and said frantically, "Guardians, join. Boss." The light bulbs in the bank's inner hall are swaying, the blueprint projection of the seed bank is flashing, the genetic tubes of thousands of plants are shining in ice blue, and the air is cool and free from the sour smell. Lin Yuyan gasped and pointed to the blueprint. The seed bank is intact, with thousands of genes to rebuild the ecology, and food trees and medicinal plants are all available. But the eternal night covers the sky, and the seeds have no light to germinate. Qin Feng's torch technology is needed to dispel the darkness. "I will pass on the blueprint. Steel reinforced walls, do you have enough welding plates for the Hummer?" Her voice was urgent, and Chen Feng's eyes were daring. "Fa Quan, the signal from the ball convoy. The Beast King in the lair is awakening. The collapse of the wall is a wave of beasts. The survivors are ugly and betrayed." Lin Yuyan was stunned for half a second, her eyes widened with moisture. "Chen Feng, a soldier with iron blood and a strategic strategy like a god. Your eyes are cold and I lose the game. Join." Medical samples, this tube of anti-venom grass, anti-acid solution for burns, rub Tang Yu's wounds. She handed the green liquid, Tang Yu took it and applied it on his arm. The burning pain was instantly relieved and cool. "Ruchuan, Sister Lin, the magic medicine. The remaining half of the medical treatment is full, thank you." Qin Feng pounced on the blueprint, his hands trembling with excitement. "Torch blueprint. LED focused light to drive away beasts, battery 17 is enough to try, boss, the signal tower is activated." Lu Ting punched the wall. "Boss has decided, let's go. The global convoy is here to kill the beast wave." Supplies inventory, 215 rounds of bullets minus 30, leaving 185, 4 flasks left, 8 food cans and 5 cakes enough for a week, enough fuel for the 2-barrel diesel engine, 17 batteries, and the portable generator is humming steadily. Lin Yuyan took 3 tubes of medicinal plant samples to fight toxins and relieve fever. Qin Feng rushed to the signal tower, sparks crackled in the wiring, the new antenna stretched like a spear, and Chen Feng pressed the button with an iron sound. Global survivors, Chen Feng's convoy arrived at the seed bank. The torch blueprint was activated, the gene bank was completed, and resources were gathered for an escape route. The nest was broken, the fortress was reinforced, and the torch of civilization lit up the eternal night. "Respond to the coordinates." The signal channeling antenna buzzed, penetrating the darkness. The light on the top of the tower flashed, and the static response in the distance was intermittent. "East Coast convoy, received. Supplies and steel, meet up. South Fortress, torch blueprint, coming to help." Cheers broke out. Lin Yuyan hugged the blueprint and cried, "Chen Feng, the bond is formed, the world response." Qin Feng stared in ecstasy. Boss, God has summoned the global convoy. But the instrument suddenly pierced the alarm, and the screen flashed red, the signal of a giant beast tide. The sea with red eyes on the horizon was like a mountain collapse, the roar was far away, and the thunder shook the fortress, and the acid fog had cracked the wall. Lu Ting's muscles stiffened. The king of beasts has awakened. The coalition wave. Boss, here it comes. Tang Yu grabbed the sample and her hands shook, signal to lure the enemy. Crisis. Lin Yuyan's face turned pale. The natural disaster beast wave, the steel needs to be reinforced urgently. Chen Feng held the M4, the flames of war were blazing. Weld the wall, prepare for war. Torch, light. The wind howled in the night, the red eye approached, the black shadow swallowed the sky outside the fortress door, and a new crisis knocked on the door. The welds of the steel door of the fortress creaked and sealed, and the acid mist seeped in from the cracks of the door, choking the nose like sulfur burning the lungs. The sea of red eyes on the horizon rolled and roared into thunder, shaking the walls and causing dust to fall. The top of Chen Feng's M4 clicked loudly, and the sound of iron exploded. Qin Feng, the Hummer's welding plates were completely removed, and the three walls were reinforced with modules. Priority was given to the sour rot area at the east gate. Lu Ting, patrolling the border to clear away stray animals, and sealing the tunnels with flasks. Tang Yu, Lin Yuyan, seed sample of the medical station. This category is to prepare for the battle. The signal tower continues to broadcast, and the convoys are summoned to speed up and converge. The iron rule is, no chaos, and those who violate it will be shot. His eyes are like a cold blade, and the three-layer fortress network is circled in red on the map, and the Humvee engine is buzzing. Qin Feng got up with weak legs, rushed to the corner with the toolbox, his hands were shaking as he connected the welding torch, and sparks crackled in blue arcs. The steel plate on the roof of the Humvee peeled off like tank scales, and beads of sweat hit the ground mixed with dust and turned into mud. Boss. The beasts are swarming with red eyes, the wall is cracked 5 meters, so the molten steel bars are exposed, and my module is welding 3 layers. The battery is powered by 17, and the welding speed is doubled. His voice trembled and became enthusiastic. The screwdriver flew and locked the steel beams, the welds were red and hot, and the east wall of the fortress was instantly thicker, and the cold and hard reflective light bulbs were swaying. Lu Ting smeared green blood on his body, his shoulder hurt like fire, but he laughed wildly and jumped out of the door. Boss iron law, Shen welding. I will clear away the beasts, use flasks to blast the tunnel. He grabbed 3 flasks and rushed out of the side door. Arcs of fire slashed through the air and exploded. The flames swallowed the 5 vanguard beasts. The smell of burnt armor was mixed with blood. The screams echoed in the pit, and the red eyes stopped for half a breath. Tang Yu and Lin Yuyan rushed to the medical table, their dirty figures in white robes side by side. The green liquid of the antitoxic plant sample was kneaded and cooled to the nose. The burning pain in Tang Yu's arm and abdomen disappeared, the gauze was discarded and the new skin was smooth. Sister Lin, magic medicine. Double the medical treatment for the remaining half, and teach me the knowledge of seeds to classify and detoxify animal poisons. Lin Yuyan's fingers trembled blue. Projection of the picture, 10,000 pipes of ice blue gene bank flashes like a galaxy. Tang Yu, the medical station prioritizes acid-resistant grass and hemostatic vine, rubs them into the warhead, and the bullet becomes poisonous and detoxifies. I lose the game with Chen Feng's eyes. Iron law protects the seeds, civilization will never be destroyed. Her moist eyes glanced at Chen Feng's back, shock turned to worship like fire. The signal tower hummed to continue broadcasting, and Chen Feng pressed the thunder button. Global convoy, the nest fortress is being reinforced, the beasts are approaching, the meeting coordinates are locked, materials are distributed according to iron laws, and those who violate the rules are shot. The roar of the eternal night wind weakened, the red icy approached half a mile away, the light bulbs in the fortress flashed steadily, and the brief silence was like the eye of a storm. Qin Feng panted and wiped his sweat. The steel mesh of the module was welded on 3 walls like a hedgehog. The remaining chassis of the Hummer was humming steadily. Boss, the fortress was upgraded to the tank level, and the acid mist was tested to fully block it. There are 12 batteries left, and the prototype torch is welded. Lu Ting returned to the door to shed blood. There was only 1 flask left, and the tunnel was sealed. Smoke curled up, 50 heads of scattered beasts were chopped off. My shoulder injury was as good as new after applying medicine, and the muscles were swollen. The team took inventory of supplies. 185 rounds of bullets were counted in the box, food cans, 8 cakes and 5 were stacked on the medical table, 2 barrels of diesel fuel were poured into the Hummer, and the portable generator roared to provide power. Lin Yuyan shared her seed knowledge and projected a blueprint. The seeds of the food tree are buried outside the fortress, germinated by the torchlight, and produce fruits every week to make up for the lack of food. Human nature is ugly, and the convoys will rob them when they come, so establish discipline first. The light on the top of the tower flashed, and the first wave of convoys responded. The East Coast pickup truck roared with its engine rushing through the acid mist, the tires crushed the corpses of beasts, the rear light of the South Fortress modified bus was blood red, and the steel spikes on the roof were like wolf teeth. Chen Feng jumped on top of the Humvee. M4 glanced over, and ordered in an iron voice, "Open the door, iron rules for supplies, turn them in for inspection, allocate campsites. Training for newcomers, and shooting for violations." The steel door creaked open, the pickup truck came to a halt, and more than a dozen survivors got out of the car, with ragged clothes and greedy eyes. Blocking the blue light of the seed bank, the leading strong man carried a shotgun and roared, "Chen Feng's team. Is the legend of the gene bank true? We have 50 tons of steel, half of which are exchanged for seeds." His hands shook slightly and he stretched out the box, and the crowd was buzzing with whispers, "Boys, run away, who cares about discipline in the eternal night?" Lu Ting tensed his muscles to block, his dagger shone coldly and chuckled, "Boss, iron law, grab it. I'll chop you all like sentries." The strong man glared and taunted, "Soldiers are pretending. The beast king in the lair is awake, you 5 are just doing this. We will weld the steel ourselves for the fortress and divide the seeds." The air solidified, greedy smelly sweat hit his nostrils, the crowd moved restlessly and pushed the box, and the shotgun was loaded and clicked. Tang Yu held the medical syringe and backed away, her heart beating like a drum. Human nature is ugly, the medical station is ready first. Lin Yuyan's face turned pale and she held the blueprint, lost in the game. They stole all the genes and destroyed civilization. Qin Feng's toolbox smashed to the ground, his legs were weak and he knelt, "Boss, 50 people are in chaos, and the beasts will come and kill them all." Chen Feng's eyes were as cold as thousand-year-old ice. The M4 muzzle flashed between the strong man's brows, and thunder exploded. Iron Rule Number 1, turn over materials and distribute them in the camp. Rule Number 2, follow orders in training, and shoot for disobedience. His voice was calm and authoritative. The red-circled camp area was left on the map, and the Humvee lights illuminated the welded steel plate with discipline provisions. Beads of cold sweat hit the ground on the forehead of the strong man. The shotgun slowed down, his eyes widened and he trembled. Your eyes are cold, divine pressure. Hand over the steel, obey the order." The crowd stopped humming, greed turned to fear, and they took 3 steps back, and the whispers turned into worship and murmured, "Chen Feng. Military god. The nest is broken, the signal is calling the world, this discipline saves lives." The steel was unloaded from Kaladui Mountain, and the pickup truck entered the camp. Chen Feng pointed at the camp, "Qin Feng, expand the modular fortress, and the new soldiers are welded to the dagger array." The convoy rolled like a snowball. Within half an hour, 30 people from the East Coast and 40 people from the South Fort gathered together. The modified Jeep motorcycles buzzed through the fog, the weapons boxes and ammunition clinked, and the food cans were scattered but their eyes were hungry. The lights of the camp swayed, the generator roared, Qin Feng commanded the sea of welding torch fire, 5 fortress modules rose like a honeycomb, and the steel mesh hedgehog reflected the firelight. Boss, the force of 100 people. The steel is enough to weld 10 layers, the Hummer chassis is upgraded to the signal tower, the prototype LED of the torch is welded, and the battery is tested to dispel the fog. His hands were trembling with excitement, and the smell of sweat mixed with welding smoke was bitter. The new soldier stared, engineering genius. Chen Feng, 5 fortresses are completed. Chen Feng's eyes were as cold as thousand-year-old ice. He raised his M4 and his voice thundered, if you want to break the nest, sneak in. Lu Ting, slide down the rope to clear the sentry guard, choose the 5 weak armors on the left wing, break the leg with the dagger at the knee socket, avoid the tail stab. Qin Feng, power the Humvee battery, arc net pit edge, burn the acid mist delayed the reinforcements. Tang Yu, the 3 fire walls of the flask sealed the right wing, and the Hummer prepared the poison. The M4 exploded the eyes, and the door lock opened in 3 minutes. His plan is like lightning in the night, and the map is marked with red circles, and the strategy is as precise as the arrival of the military god. Lu Ting camp roared for training, daggers and kitchen knives flickered like ghosts. 50 new soldiers lined up, and the muscular man gasped and slashed, the knees are weak and the armor is weak. The tail thorn avoids spinning. Boss Chen Feng's trick, the sentry is chopped like a vegetable. A strong man waved the air and fell to the ground, and everyone laughed, trash, you will die forever. It's settled. Lu Ting punched his chest and roared, boss ordered to clear the whistle, I'm going to fight 5. Follow up, or shoot. Xin Han's eyes were red and swollen, and he whispered enthusiastically, Brother Lu, the magic team, train the iron blood. The daggers were swung and the camp was filled with murderous intent. Tang Yu's medical station was busy. Antivenomous herbs were used to knead syringes and hemostatic vines were wrapped in gauze. Newly injured people were queuing up to apply cool water like a spring. Chen Feng's iron rule saved 100 people, doubled the medical treatment, and used the magic medicine to detoxify animals. Lin Yuyan was talking about seed knowledge, and the blueprint was projected on the onlookers' faces. Yuan, food trees germinate and produce fruit within a week, medicinal plants resolve mutations, and torchlight rebuilds the ecology. The survivors' eyes changed from greed to gratitude, and they whispered in admiration, Chen Feng. God of leadership, distribution is fair, each person in the food can has 1 cake, and discipline stops chaos. The tranquility shattered, the sea with red eyes on the horizon surged, the tide of beasts was like a mountain collapsing and the ground cracked, thousands of elite beasts roared to the sky, the sea of acid mist rolled and burned grass and black smoke rose into the sky, the giant shadow of the beast king leapt out of the pit 100 meters away, the carapace's iron knobs and tail spines were like whips, thundering in the air, and the red eyes and blood locked the fortress. The first wave of impact on the edge of the wall was loud, the steel mesh bent and creaked, and the new warriors screamed and their legs weakened, Beast King, the end. 100 of us, all dead. The strong man in the lead shook off his shotgun, Chen Feng's magic plan. This tide swallows the city. The greedy ones snickered and pushed, chaos, grab the car and run. The force grew to 90 people, 20 vehicles piled high with weapons, thousands of bullets and 20 self-made flasks. Chen Feng scanned the iron site of the patrol camp and completed the inventory of the red circle escape route of the blueprint, torch prototype Humvee, tomorrow's great escape. Iron law protects civilization. The crowd cheered thunderously, and the lights reflected their faces with fighting spirit. But Qin Feng rushed to the account, boss, signal tower detective, the East Coast convoy brings resources, but the inner ghost whispers to grab the seeds. Lu Ting held the dagger, chop them all. Lu Ting's eyes widened and he roared in ecstasy, old god. Cut off the tail at the knees, I will lead the team to chop. He led the commando to the left wing, swung the daggers in unison, the elite beast's rotten armor snapped in the knees, the giant body knelt down and screamed, the green blood fountain gurgled on the ground, the new warriors were stained with blood, shock turned to fanaticism, Brother Lu. Chen Maple's plan, its weakness is as accurate as the divine eye. Qin Feng struck the signal tower, the battery 12 fully connected torch prototypes buzzed and the LEDs exploded like sun fragments, the arc net whipped up acid mist, and the beasts hit the net and scorched, and the smoke was bitter and fishy, boss. The 5 fortresses are stable, and the new welded steel net blocks thousands of heads. Chen Feng leapt on top of the Hummer, M4 headshots and exploded with green mist from the brains of 10 beasts. If you want to break the tide, blast the Beast King. Lu Ting, the commando team's 20-man dagger array circled the left knee and broke the leg, the new warrior followed. Qin Feng, the prototype torch concentrated arc net was fully opened, burning acid mist sealed the right wing. Tang Yu, Lin Yuyen, the medical fire line is advancing, the Hummer's core is loaded, and the flask is locked. The plan is like lightning in the night, the Beast King's weak point is circled in red, and the Hummer engine is roaring. Tang Yu's syringe poison detoxification shot, the medical fire line pushed 100 meters away, Lin Yuyen's laser pointer assisted, Chen Feng, the bond wins, humanity is subdued. The flask rained down and exploded, the flames swallowed all the beasts on the right wing, and the burning smell was pungent. The Hummer Chen Feng drove straight into the core, the tires crushed the beast's corpse, the M4 accurately blasted the edge of the Beast King's red eye, 3 shots of green juice burst, the tail thorn swung at him and he spun to avoid it, the steel plate scratched and sparks flew, the 4 keyholes of the flask were thrown, the sea of fire swallowed the Beast King's carapace. The new warrior stared and knelt down, and the strong man trembled with tears. Chen Feng, personally bombarded the Beast King. 100-man force, a divine leader. Weakness, the tide recedes. Lu Ting returned to the camp full of green blood, his muscles trembling in awe. Boss Hummer is like a tank god, without you, all my team will be poisoned to death. Qin, the prototype of the wind holding the torch, was ecstatic. Victory. 30 vehicles and weapons were obtained, ammunition was doubled, and the power exceeded 100. Tang Yu Medical Station saved 20 injuries and applied cool medicine all over. Moved, the iron law protects hundreds of lives. Lin Yuyen held tightly to the blueprint, torch of civilization, dawn. The eternal night wind was like a howling ghost, blowing through the steel mesh hedgehogs in the camp, making a sharp metal friction sound, mixed with the deep roar of the red I see in the distance. The putrid smell of acid mist seeped into the nasal cavity, like a dead body rotting in the lungs. The campfire swayed, reflecting the shadows on more than 100 faces. The aftertaste of cheers shattered like foam. The eyes of the new warriors were flashing with fear. Cold sweat dripped from the forehead of the shotgunners led by the strong men. They whispered like poisonous snakes, the inner ghost, who? Seeds are stolen. The tide of beasts comes and they all die. Chen Feng, the law can't control people's hearts. The air was as heavy as a lead weight pressing against his chest. The hands of an East Coast rookie holding a kitchen knife trembled slightly. His eyes glanced at the blueprint projection. The radio static buzzed, and a faint whisper came from the outside team. Strong man, have you got the blueprint? Grab all the seeds for the lair route. Chen Feng jumped from the top of the Humvee, the sound of the M4 gun but hitting the subway echoed, his cold-blade eyes swept over every face in the camp, and the sound of iron exploded to suppress the hum. Unless the inner ghost is removed, there is no way to escape. Qin Feng, the signal tower monitors the full frequency, lock the eavesdropper. Lu Ting, patrols the camp to catch ghosts, and serves with a dagger. Tang Yu, Lin Yuyen, counts seed samples at the medical station, and locks the cabin door. The convoy is stopped, and resources are inventoried. Tomorrow, at dawn, he will pass through the small boss area of the lair and go straight to the Ultimate Lord's outpost fortress. Iron rule, suspicious ones will be kidnapped, confirmed and shot. His map was thrown on the hood of the Humvee, and the red pen circled the escape route, winding through the ruins, passing through 3 monster lairs, and avoiding the Beast King's serious injury pit. The LED of the Hummer torch prototype buzzed and flashed, and the arc net whip shadow shook, illuminating the pale faces of everyone. Qin Feng's legs were weak and he rushed towards the signal tower, his toolbox clanged and hit the ladder, his hands were shaking and sparks were crackling on the wiring, and the smell of sweat mixed with welding smoke was bitter and assailed his nose. Boss, the mole's frequency is locked to the strong man on the east coast. No, the thin monkey newcomer next to him has the eavesdropper hidden in his sleeve. The battery is full for 12 times, and the monitoring is doubled. His voice trembled and became desperate, and the radio burst out a recording of the thin monkey whispering, "Boss, route blueprint yes, the seed samples of the antitoxic grass will be snatched first." The new soldier stared wide-eyed and backed away, shaking the shotgun on the ground. "Skinny monkey. You're fucking betraying the team. Chen Feng's plan saves hundreds of lives, you're cheating the whole camp." The thin monkey's face turned pale and he knelt down, the radio in his sleeves hummed, and the external frequency was piercing. "Damn it. Everyone grabs the seeds, no matter what." Lu Ting's muscles bulged like iron tumors. The cold light of the dagger struck the thin monkey's throat. The green blood stuck to his body and the smell of old wounds hit his nostrils. He roared like a beast, "Boss, iron law, God catches me. I'm going to challenge 5 ghosts, this one will be the first to chop the dagger." The skin of the neck was first pressed and bloodshot oozed out, and the thin monkey screamed and urinated on the ground. Everyone whispered in fear and turned cold. "Brother Lu, the killing is really cruel, human nature is ugly." Fortunately, Chen Feng cleared it first. The muzzle of Chen Feng's M4 instantly hit the thin monkey. Between the brows, a cold voice said, "Give us the coordinates of the external frequency, and tie the rope to the tree to bait the tide of beasts. The iron law protects civilization, and there is no mercy." The thin monkey confessed in a trembling voice with tears running down his nose. 50 people in the convoy off the east coast, ambushed the supply truck in the sandstorm area. The gunshot stopped, the dagger clicked and died, the bloody stench exploded, the camp was dead silent, the new soldier knelt down with soft legs and murmured, "Chen Feng," his eyes turned cold, "divine judgment. The inner ghost is dead, the route is protected." But the oppression did not dissipate. The sea with red eyes on the horizon roared and approached a mile away. The giant shadow of the seriously injured beast king shook. The tail sting whip was drawn out and thunder was faint. Acid mist rolled and burned black smoke into the sky, choking and burning the lungs. The projection of Lin Yuyan's blueprint trembled, and the ice-blue gene bank flickered. Chen Feng, ecological changes, the awakening of the little boss in the nest, a sandstorm natural disaster warning, the ultimate Dark Lord's shadow swallowing the mountains, the red eye of billions of nest hearts pulsating. She pointed at the projection with her finger, red dots covered the route, and her eyes were moist. "Hope, the germination of grain tree seeds requires a torch to stabilize the light. Fruits are produced in 1 week to save hunger, and a sandstorm destroys the entire army. Tang Yu's medical station is busy, and the syringe of antitoxic grass is cool and tangy, but his hands are shaking, the wounded are rotated 20 times, the hemostatic rattan bags are not enough, and the food cans can last for 3 days with 1 cake per person. People's hearts are floating, and there is more than one evil spirit." Chen Feng smashed the map with an iron fist, and the team in the red circle on the blueprint said, "I will lead the assault team with 20 Hummers, Lu Tingqing is the small boss, and Qin Feng's outpost fortress reinforced steel walls carry resource vehicles. Lin Yuyan monitors the ecology, and Tang Yu follows up with the injured rotation medical vehicle. Set off at dawn, cross the nest, gather resources to reorganize. The iron law, unity will never die." Everyone nodded with trembling eyes, and the motorcade hummed and the engine roared. Gathering momentum, 50 modified jeeps, pickup trucks, and motorcycles were equipped with steel-spiked wolf fangs, weapons piled high with thousands of bullets, and 20 self-made flames of flasks reflected their faces, but greedy whispers still lingered, "The sandstorm is coming, and the supply trucks are robbing the seeds." The Humvee engine roared in the lead, and the prototype LED light of the torch pierced the night. The convoy snaked out of the camp like a steel snake, and the steel mesh fortress was left with 30 guards and the welds creaked and sealed. The road in the ruins of the eternal night is bumpy and rattling, tires crush animal corpses and fly and stick to the windshield, acid mist chokes the nose and mixes with the bitter taste of diesel, and red-eyed beasts sneak around with low roars. Behind Qin Feng's resource truck, he hugged the toolbox and trembled, "Boss." The steel wall of the ruins of the outpost fortress is cracked 10 meters, and there are 50 tons of steel left to weld 3 layers. The battery is powered by 12, and the sandstorm wind speed warning is doubled. Lu Ting's assault motorcycle jumped forward, daggers and kitchen knives flashed ghostly. The little boss's lair is close, and the rod-armored Scorpion King is guarding him with 100 heads, Boss Si Qingguang. Lin Yuyan's medical vehicle projection monitoring, the green liquid sample bottle jingled, ecological changes, scorpion poison acid is 3 times thicker, red eyes pulse faster, the Lord's nest is 2 miles away. Tang Yu rubbed the hemostatic vine with gauze, the cool smell hit his nose, but his face turned pale. There are 5 wounded in rotation, the ammunition and supplies truck is heavy, and the yellow sand is hidden in the sandstorm. The gray light of dawn has not yet appeared, and the first nest is approaching. The red eyes in the black pit are flashing like the gate of hell. The giant claws of the rod-armored Scorpion King are clacking in the air. The poisonous mist fountain is green and yellow, and the sticky ground is chirping. A group of 50 guard scorpions are crawling out of the carapace and rubbing against each other. Lu Ting jumped into the pit with a roar, and 20 people in the dagger array followed him. He cut his leg off with a weak point in the knee, and the Scorpion King's pincers were missing. He spun around to avoid it, and green juice sprayed on his face, burning like sulfur, the boss's trick. The scorpion's knees are rotten and the armor is broken. I will chop the king's pincers alone. The new warriors were covered in blood with the chops, and the pit was filled with screams and deafening, but a scorpion the tail pierced the motorcycle tire and exploded, and the rider fell to the ground screaming and was swallowed up by the poisonous mist. Brother Lu, help. The poison burns the lungs. Lu Ting saved the life and chopped off the tail with a dagger. The green blood stuck to his body and gasped, hold on, Chen Feng's route is protected. The scorpion group pressed the battle, and everyone's legs weakened and retreated. The little boss has no solution, the 100-headed team will be swallowed. The ruins of Qin Feng's outpost fortress were parked. The blue arc of the welding gun crackled the steel wall, which was 2 layers thick. The steel clicked to lock the hedgehog, the fortress pockets resources, the Hummer torch light test, and the scorpion fog. But the sky was filled with black clouds, and the sandstorm roared like the roar of all beasts. The sea of yellow sand rolled to cover the sky and the earth, the wind howled to tear the steel plates and creaked, the vision was as black as falling into the abyss, the sand hit the face like needles, and the smell of diesel mixed with sand dust choked the throat. The supply truck was the first to bear the brunt. The tires skidded and overturned with a crash. The ammunition box bounced off and the bullets scattered on the ground. The seed sample bottles were broken and the green liquid seeped into the sand. The food cans rolled down, crushed biscuits and powder flew, resources destroyed. The sandstorm swallowed the whole vehicle. All the seeds will be lost and they will starve to death. The new soldiers were pushing and shoving around, and a strong man rushed into the box to grab ammunition. Oh my! The iron law cannot control the natural disaster. Another newcomer from the East Coast secretly grabbed the sample bottle and stuffed it into his chest, and there was a faint buzzing in his sleeve. Chen Feng's Humvee spun to a stop and M4 strafed the sandstorm blind beast. The 3 heads of the sandstorm blind beast exploded with green mist. The iron roar suppressed the sand roar, stopped the chaos. The assault team pulled the resource truck, Lu Ting's Scorpion King cut off the bottom of his pocket, Qin Feng welded the steel wall lockbox, Tang Yu medical firewire pushed, Lin Yuyan's sample was given priority. Get it back. The iron law of unity, the sandstorm breaks through and regroups. His figure rushed through the sand like a ghost, the Hummer tires were stuck in the ground and spun out, the prototype of the torch was fully opened, the LED light burst into the sand curtain, the arc net whipped the yellow sand beast's shadow and flew away, and the smell of smoke was mixed with poisonous fog. But the disadvantage was overwhelming. The peak wind speed of the sandstorm tore off the steel spurs of the motorcycle and broke. The resource vehicle was half buried in the sand dunes. The bullets were half wet and rusted. The seed samples were 70% broken into green liquid and stained the sand black. The new warriors coughed up the sand and knelt softly. Chen Feng, there is no solution to the natural disaster. The ultimate Lord's nest is still ahead. Who believes in unity? The strong man grabbed the box and taunted with trembling hands, God of leadership. There is a lack of supplies, and everyone eats everyone first. Lu Ting's scorpion pit was full of green blood, and his muscles were burning and trembling. He hugged the box. Boss, the Scorpion King is clamped, and the small boss is dead and sealed. But the sandstorm poisonous scorpions are mixed with the sand, and the team is dead. His eyes widened and he swept the sand curtain in despair, and his dagger dripped blood and stuck to the sand. The sparks of Qin Feng's welding gun were half extinguished, and the steel wall was bent and creaked. There are only 80 batteries left, the fortress can't hold it, and the sample bottles are 50% occupied. Lin Yuyan threw herself on the sand and grabbed the broken screen of the blueprint projection. The ecology collapsed, the sandstorm caused mutation, and the red eyes pulsated for nearly a mile. Tang Yu shot a syringe to detoxify, and the wounded coughed up blood and sand. Doubling the medical treatment is not enough, the rotation is broken, humanity, and there are 3 people trying to grab the medicine. At the peak of the sandstorm, the yellow sand was like a landslide, and the convoy was mired in chaos. A newcomer from the East Coast, a former ally of the Slender Monkey, had a sneaky eavesdropping device flashing red. He grabbed the last sample of the antivenom grass and stuffed it into his pocket. He whispered to the external frequency, "Boss, the sandstorm route is locked, and half of the seeds are snatched." The radio static burst out, exposing the ear. Everyone turned their heads when they heard the sound, their greedy eyes locked on the newcomer. He turned pale and threw the bottle and ran away, the devil. Chen Feng's iron law will not stop killing, and people's hearts will never die. The sandstorm gradually subsided, the black clouds became colder and colder, the red-eyed sea grunt approached, the black shadow of the ultimate lair was like a mountain, and the layers of crises were tightening like a net. Before the convoy was reorganized, the dust and sand had not dispersed, and the morale was as low as falling into the abyss of eternal night. Chen Feng stood on the top of the sand dune with his M4 in hand, the war flames were burning cold but suppressed like lead, and the blueprint was blurred in the wet sand. Grab resources, focus on formation. Unite, defeat the ultimate. But the whispers still existed, and the ghosts cried in the wind. The aftertaste of the sandstorm is like ghost claws scratching the ground. The yellow sand slowly accumulates into mounds. The pungent smell of burnt diesel mixed with green blood and sour rot makes your throat feel like swallowing iron nails. The red light of the East Coast newcomer's bug flashed and then went out. His face was as yellow as a corpse. The antivenom sample bottle was still held in his sweaty palms, and green liquid oozed out from the falling sand. The radio static burst like firecrackers, and exposed whispers echoed in the camp, "Boss, the sandstorm route is locked, and the seeds are half snatched." Everyone coughed up sand and turned their heads, their greedy eyes locked on him like hungry wolves. The strong new soldier pushed forward, the shotgun barrel trembling and pushing against his chest. The mole. Another dog selling seeds. Chen Feng Tielu is constantly killing people, and they are all dead due to lack of supplies. Another newcomer knelt on the sand, his kitchen knife clinking on the ground, his eyes widened and he muttered in fear, "The East Coast, the Lord's black shadow is swallowing the mountain, and the red-eyed sea is approaching. Unity? It's a joke, people eat people first." Chen Feng stood on the top of the dune, with the butt of his M4 sunk deep into the wet sand. He was crying in the wind and his face was cut like a knife. His cold eyes swept across the shadows, and the iron blood in his chest was boiling like lava. Human nature, this eternal night cancer, the skinny monkey had just died, and this piece of shit reappeared. The blueprint was blurred by wet sand, The route's red circle showed the weak points of the mini-boss, and the ultimate lair was pulsing like a heart beating a mile away. There were more ghosts inside, and the hearts of the 90 people in the convoy were floating like sand avalanches. The old military camp oath flashed in his mind: Iron law protects civilization, spare a ghost to destroy the fire. Sacrifice. The green blood of the 10 dead members was still hot, the wounded coughed up 20 pieces of sand, and they had enough food to last them 3 days. 50% of the samples were recovered, but all was lost. But if they don't kill, 50 people from the east coast will ambush in the sandstorm area. All the seeds will be lost, the torch will be dimmed, and civilization will be wiped out. His iron fist trembled slightly, and he suppressed a trace of hesitation in his heart. Killing is easy, people's hearts are difficult to control. Iron law becomes an iron cage, or is it a torch of salvation? Taking a deep breath of the acid mist, the decision was drawn like a sword. Qin Feng, lock the frequency of the signal tower and feed false information. Lu Ting, tie up the dog for torture. Tang Yu and Lin Yuyen, use the medical vehicle to count samples and search the suspects. The assault team brings the resource vehicle and reorganizes the fortress. The blue arc of Qin Feng's welding gun was half extinguished, and he climbed up with 8 batteries in his arms. The smell of sweaty welding smoke was bitter and assailed his nose. He stared at Xian Ding's eavesdropping device with round eyes, and his voice trembled and became fanatical: the boss is a genius. Fake blueprints feed the east coast, and the route is detoured. Sandstorm went straight to the Lord's nest and sent out a false signal: lock the frequency, the dog bites the hook. His fingers were flying, sparks were crackling in the wiring, and the radio was buzzing and roaring. The newcomer's face turned pale and he threw the bottle and retreated. Sandhill slipped and fell to his knees. Chen Feng, iron. Lu, spare your life, I just want the seed to survive. Everyone grabs it. But Lu Ting's muscles were bulging like iron tumors, and the burning pain of the old wound was still there. The cold light of the dagger pressed against his throat and the skin opened, and the bloodshot oozed out and the smelly sand exploded. Boss is setting up a trap, God. I'll torture this dog, cut off the scorpion queen and chop up the mole. The new soldier screamed and wet the sand with his legs. The strong new warriors gathered around and yelled, Brother Lu. The mole betrayed the team, and the leader's brain suppressed the people's hearts. Fortunately, Chen Feng seduced him first. Chen Feng jumped down the sand dune, the Hummer engine roared and gathered momentum, the prototype LED of the torch pierced the sand screen. He crouched in front of the newcomer, the M4 gun pointed at the forehead and looked coldly. The psychological game was like a storm rolling in. This dog's eyes are as sneaky as a skinny monkey. The convoys from outside the east coast join forces, the Dark Lord infiltrates. In the heart of Yongye, old friends in the military camp once betrayed the whole camp and starved to death. He gritted his teeth and relented. The iron law is not a butcher's knife, but a torch shield, which can destroy hundreds of lives. The voice was as low as a hammer: supply. To whom are you selling the FSB coordinates, Lord faction, and seed control rights? The newcomer burst into tears and grumbled with blood in his throat. The strong-man boss from the east coast, teamed up with the Dark Lord, the red-eyed priest, to infiltrate the convoy to steal the seed blueprint and control the right to rebuild the torch. 50 people in the sandstorm area ambushed and robbed the resource truck within 3 days. Lu Ting swung the dagger into the neck and cut the skin deep into the bone. The smell of green blood mixed with urine was pungent, and he growled, Lord's faction. I'm going to chop off my finger for details. Xian Ding screamed and cut off a finger, spraying blood on the sand dune. The priest is wearing a black robe, and the red eyes are implanted to enslave people's hearts. The 5 moles are hiding in the convoy, and the strong man is the leader. The next one is to rob the sample of the medical vehicle. The dead silence in the camp turned violent, and the new soldiers retreated with eyes wide open. Cold sweat dripped from the forehead of the strong shotgunner, and his voice trembled like a leaf: Lord infiltration. Our east coast is all rotten. Chen Feng's eyes turned cold: divine judge. The thin monkey has 5 ghosts, the iron law is clear. Tang Yu's medical syringe shot to detoxify, the smell of cool antitoxic grass hit his nose, but his hands were shaking and white. Boss, there are 5 ghosts, 20 wounded people grab medicine and 3 are suppressed. Human nature is ugly, thank you for setting up a trap. Rescue the medical team. Lin Yuyan rushed to grab the blueprint and the screen turned cold. Ecological changes, the Lord's red eye pulse controls the inner ghost, and Chen Feng's strategy is to protect the fire. God. Qin Feng's radio blasted a false signal, and the East Coast's external frequency was hooked. Strong man, there is a blueprint, and the sandstorm area is converging. He trembled and hugged the battery. Hey, the boss is in the middle of the game, and the East Coast is killing each other. Chen Feng stood up and waved his M4, and the sound of iron buzzed. Execution. Lu Ting chops, the iron law is ruthless. The whole camp is searched, and suspects are tied to tree-bait beasts. Qin Feng monitors the 5 ghosts. Tang Yu medical review, Lin Yuyan sample distribution, anti-poison grass gives priority to the wounded, and hemostatic vine is rotated. Supplies are divided, food per person and 1 cake to last 3 days, ammunition 55.56, dry ammunition 300, wet ammunition. Roy throws the sand. Keep moving forward, the second fortress is reinforced. Lu Ting roared with daggers, and the new soldier's head rolled with sand and green blood gushed out. The new soldier's legs were weak and he knelt down and muttered, Chen Feng's divine judge. The inner ghost is dead, and the heart is cold and ironclad, worship. But the whispers still lingered, and a thin new soldier glanced at the medical cart furtively, his eyes glancing at the seed bottle. The convoy reorganized and buzzed. 50 steel-spurred jeep pickups and motorcycles set off against the sand. The Hummer took the lead and the torch LED-focused light to pierce the night. The arc net whip shadow drove away the red-eyed beasts and roared from the flanks. The ruins road was bumpy and bones splashed and stuck to the windshield, acid mist choked the nose and mixed with diesel oil. The ruins of the second fortress loomed 2 miles away, the steel wall collapsed and half-monster claw marks were crisscrossed, and the 10-headed grunts with red eyes climbed up the wall and scratched the carapace. The toolbox behind Qin Feng's resource car jingled, and the blue arc of the ladder welding gun crackled. Boss. There are 30 tons of steel left in the second fortress, and we are welding 3 layers of hedgehog pocket resources. 8 batteries, upgraded torch prototype, LED polyhydrogen arc light upgrade, partial illumination for 100 meters to drive away fog. Sparks sizzled on the thick steel wall, the arc network expanded and buzzed for test flashes, and the resource boxes in the fortress were locked and jingled. Lu Ting's assault motorcycle jumped forward, followed by 20 people in the dagger formation, his muscles bulging and roaring at his small red eyes. The Lord penetrates the ghost Qingguang. Knees are weak. The dagger broke the armor, green juice sprayed on the face and burned with the smell of sulfur. He whirled around and chopped off his tail, gasped and hugged the wounded person and replied, hold on. Chen Feng set up a trap to save bye-bye, fortress pocket. A small group of monsters were cleared, and the fortress steel wall was welded with 3 layers of hedgehogs. The prototype of the Qin Feng torch was fully opened, and the hydrogen arc light exploded for hundreds of meters. The pressure of the eternal night was relieved like the dawn, the acid mist dissipated, the diesel was fresh, and everyone's pale faces reflected gold, Qin Gong's magical skills. The torch light is warm, the night is not dark, and people's hearts are stable. Chen Feng's Hummer patrols the fort, and the blueprint redraws the red circle of the third layer's weak point. The game in the heart starts again, the inner ghost Wuzong, the Lord infiltrates like a poisonous root, the hearts of Tile King and the 3 people are weakening. The supplies are divided into 300, and the ammunition and food are enough for 3 days. However, the East Coast external frequency convergence is approaching, and the black clouds of the superstorm suppress the pulse of Gulu and accelerate. Sacrifice 10 death points. The fire of civilization, the seeds need to be stabilized for a week to germinate. He holds the M4 with an iron fist and presses the hesitation, kill all people's hearts, leave doubts in an iron law, way like a knife hanging from the neck, decide, censorship is increased, and the torch is lit to summon the world. The new warrior pushed the box and his eyes turned to admiration. Leader Chen Feng, the gods will clear the ghosts and the fortress will be solid, and unity will be born. The strong man polished his shotgun and lowered his head. The east coast is rotten, I follow the iron law. But the black clouds in the sky rolled like an ink sea, the superstorm roared and all the beasts roared, the yellow sand sea became more violent and the wind tore the steel plates creaking, the vision suddenly fell into the abyss, the sand needle hit the face with bloodshot eyes, the first layer of the steel wall in front of the fortress peeled off with a bang, the distant fire at the old outpost site went out, the tide of red-eyed beasts surged like a landslide, and the Lord's black shadow. Mountains squirmed and pulsed to the ground. Qin Feng's torch light swayed and trembled. Boss, the superstorm destroyed the road ahead, the beast tide came, and the third layer little boss awakened hundreds of heads. Lu Ting held a gun with a dagger dripping with blood, prepare for war. Chen Feng's iron law, divine rebellion. The motorcade engine roared to gain momentum, but morale was slightly high but in crisis. Press again, the peak of the sandstorm swallows the shadow, and the whisper of the inner ghost looms in the wind, the Lord is coming, seed grabbing. Chen Feng stood on the top of the fort and the M4 literacy beast's brain exploded. The war flames burned coldly and suppressed the weight, reorganize. Fully open the torch, travel through. The howling wind ghost kept crying, and the eternal night abyss tightened. The sandstorm was like the roar of thousands of ghosts, and the dense rain of yellow needles hit the face with bloodshot eyes, and the vision suddenly fell into a bottomless abyss. The steel wall on the first floor of the second fortress creaked and peeled off like paper, the fragments whipped and cracked the leg bones, and the acid mist mixed with green blood and the putrid smell choked the throat like swallowing sulfur fire. The tide of red-eyed beasts gurgled, the carapace rubbed against the ground and roared like thunder. Hundreds of small bosses pulsated and squirmed and led, the tail stinger whipped into the sky with a piercing sound, the distant pulse of the Lord's black shadow mountain shook the base of the fort, and the east coast's external frequency radio whispered loudly, inside ghost, storm cover robbery. Seeds and medical supplies are all snatched, Chen Feng's iron law is over, man eats man first. The new warrior shotgun slid to the sand and knelt down, his eyes widened in fear, urine hit his nose, and he trembled. Doho, boss, the tide of beasts engulfed the fort, the storm tore the steel, the inner ghosts and 5 ghosts whispered, and the 50 dogs bit the hook and mutilated themselves. 90 people were buried. A joke of unity, 300 food bombs in 3 days, and the green blood burned to death first. Another thin newcomer swept the medical vehicle furtively, his eyes flashed with seed bottles greedily, and climbed into the box with weak legs and whispered, the Lord's red-eyed slaves. Chen Feng's magic bureau feeds fakes, and the east coast bites itself, but the storm destroys the road, and the fortress collapses and is destroyed. The M4 literacy beast's brain exploded on the top of Qin Feng Castle and stuck to the windshield. The green juice burned his face and was bitter with sulfur. His iron figure stood like a mountain in the wind, and the iron-blooded lava in his chest surged and pressed against the lead cloud of despair. The peak of the superstorm, the beast tide awakened from the nest, the inner ghost whispered and people were worried, supplies and ammunition were 300 and food for 3 days, and the sacrifice of 10 deaths was a blood debt. If the fort was not evacuated, 50% of the seeds of the blueprint flew into ashes, and the civilization was destroyed without light from the torch. A flashback to the old military camp oath, to protect the fire, the iron law is not to slaughter, but to be a shield. Deeply inhaling the blood mist of the sand needle, he unsheathed the decisive blade and shouted coldly, retreat. The whole convoy retreated to the core of the second fortress, and the 3-story steel wall was hidden. Qin Feng urgently welded the 4th layer to inject torch fuel, and the battery's full-voltage arc network expanded by 100 meters. Lu Ting led a dagger array of 20 to defend the entrance, shotgun dishes the self-made flasks are all loaded. Lin Yuyan uses the seed defense strain to spray the wall, and Tang Yu's medical vehicle uses antitoxic grass to lock the cabin and save the life. The prototype of the Hummer's leading torch is fully activated, and the weak point of the beast's nest is blasted. The iron law will not retreat, and those who violate it will be killed. Qin Feng's legs went soft and slippery on the sand, the blue arc of the welding gun extinguished the half-battery and clinked in his arms. He stared at the fragments of the fortress wall peeling off and smashing into his shoulders, bleeding. His voice trembled and turned frantic, as if he had seen a miracle. Boss. Divine breaking. Superstorm tore off the first layer, 4 layers of welding-injected fuel. Battery 8 is fully charged, the torch hydrogen arc is upgraded to focus 200 degrees to drive away fog beasts, and the arc network whip shadow expands the hedgehog-killing field. Sparks crackled and crackled with flying fingers, the steel 30 tons of remaining molten materials were injected into the cracks of the wall and buzzed thickly. The red circle of the fuel and diesel watering blueprint flashed at the base of the mother nest. The coarse steel bones of the fortress creaked and straightened. The hydrogen arc burst brightly stabbed the night like day. The acid mist receded and the green serum was new. The pale face of the new warrior reflected the golden light. He knelt down and murmured, "Qin Gong is a genius. The torch is as warm as the sun. When Chen Feng resurrects the fort, the god leader defies the sky. The 5 hidden ghosts inside are chilling. Fortunately, the iron law suppresses them." Lu Ting's muscles bulged like iron tumors and rushed into his mouth. The smell of burning pain and sulfur from the old wounds was still there. He followed up with a whirlwind of 20 daggers, roaring and grunting to suppress the beast tide. Boss's iron order, defend to the death. Weakly chop the mother's nest pulse in the knees, inside get away, ghost dog. The strong new warrior's kitchen knife changed into a dagger with shotguns, and 20 homemade glass grunts were thrown into the beasts. The phosphorus was hot and the green blood fountain was pungent. The carapace of the red eye cracked and echoed, and the tail thorn whip was worn close to the shoulder. Screaming and blood spraying, Brother Lu, the poison burns the flesh to pieces, and the beasts devour hundreds of heads. Chen Feng retreats with magic, but the entrance collapses. Lu Ting spun around and chopped off his tail and knees, green juice sprayed on his face, he gasped and hugged the wounded and shouted back, "Hold on." The boss set up a trap to clear the ghost fort. Solid, the dagger array penetrated the nest, my muscles were burned and I couldn't retreat. The new warrior's eyes were wide open and his body was covered with blood. He was trembling in admiration. Lu Ting is invincible. Chen Feng drank 20 iron men and defended them like a mountain. The hearts of the people are floating and the iron law is burning. Lin Yuyan's medical truck pounced on the sand to grab the bottle of antivenom herb, her eyes moistened with cold light and turned to determination. The broken screen of the blueprint monitored the pulsation control of the red eye. She pinched the strain test tube and sprayed the green liquid on the wall to prevent the spores from buzzing, spreading, and the sticky carapace corroded. Chen Feng. The ecological mutation lord enslaves the inner ghost, and the seed strain activates the armor-melting wall protection. 50% of the samples are seriously injured, and the hemostatic vines take turns to crush the 20 wounded. The spore cloud is pungent and sour, and the red eyes climb the wall and the carapace softens and drips with green pus, and the newcomer thin and sneaky, her eyes flickered but her legs were weak and she knelt down. Sister Lin's magical skills, strain burning beast armor, Chen Feng protects the fire, 5 ghosts inside me, no, iron rules. Tang Yu shot a syringe to detoxify the cool grass-flavored blood, her hands were shaking and pale, and she was seriously injured in the coughing sand. Yu Yan cooperates to save lives. The boss evacuates the medical cabin, and the wounded are resisting. The ugly inner ghost of human nature whispers, and the iron law of gratitude is as deep as the sea. The wounded man's pale face reflected the arc of hydrogen, and he gasped and whispered, "Chen Fengshen, the castle does not collapse, survive." The fleet of 50 steel-spiked Jeep pickup trucks retreated to the core, the Hummer engine and diesel roared to take the lead, the prototype of the torch LED hydrogen arc focused 200 degrees to stab the tide of beasts, the arc network whip shadow buzzed and expanded, red eyes twitched and green blood exploded. Chen Feng M4 top fort looked coldly at the mother's nest tumor pulsating for 1 mile. The storm yellow sand sea whip steel plate squeaking, the beast-tide grunt pressed into the entrance and hit the wall with hundreds of heads, shaking the ground. He held the gun with an iron fist and played a heart-to-heart game. The inner ghost Wuzong whispered in the wind, the East Coast 50 self-mutilation hook bit the intelligence lock, but the storm destroyed the road and the super black cloud grunt, nearly 300 ammunition was burned, and the food was cut off in 3 days. The balance is like a blade, destroy the brood and reverse, capture the minions to dig out the Lord's weakness. The low roar suppressed the ghost's cry, assault. The Hummer hit the nest's knee, the flask was all pulse-throttled. Qin Feng's arc-locked beast, Tang Yu's strain of Yu Yen expanded. Lu Ting's entrance was penetrated, the ghost in the radio prison, the suspects are now chopped. At the peak of the storm, sand needles smashed into the bloodstream, brood tumors squirmed and sprayed green mist with spores, the smell of rotten flesh, the red-eyed sea hit the 3-story steel wall, cracks widened, the strong man blasted the beast's brains with shotguns and stuck to the wall, the new warrior slashed his armor with a kitchen knife and shouted blood-stained, collapse, the fort collapsed and everyone died. Chen Feng's iron law could not hold on. But the 4th layer of Qin Feng's welding gun was completed after injecting fuel, the torch was fully opened, and the hydrogen arc exploded like the sun falling, and the beam of light retreated into the sky and pierced the black clouds in the eternal night. The arc network whipped all the beasts into convulsions and collectively convulsed into the sea of green blood. He was so excited that his legs were weak and he knelt down on the sand and hugged the battery and trembled, "Boss, breakthrough." The torch fuel is injected into the concentrated light for 300 meters to drive the mist beast into atomization, but the ultimate lord needs an energy core, and the seed bank battery stack cannot hold it. The new warrior stared back and shouted in admiration, Qin Feng upgraded to the divine light. Chen Feng ordered the fortress not to collapse, the light warms the heart and the iron law burns, and the inner ghost is gone. Lu Ting's daggers rushed into the mother's nest, his muscles were torn and burned, his knees were in pain, his pulse was crackling, and green springs were gushing out. The flask of phosphorus fire was thrown into the tumor, and the explosion was deafening. The spore cloud Lin Yuyen sprayed out and rotted the tumor, nourishing and softening. Tang Yu dragged the injured person's needle. Injection of pressure poison, Hummer Chen Feng drove into the knee socket, steel thorn wolf fangs tore the tumor wall, green blood splashed inside the M4 literacy beast, bitter diesel mixed with rancid smell, he jumped out of the cabin and pressed a dagger against his minions, black-robed and red-eyed priest slaves, the gun was held between the brows and the cold interrogation, confession. The weakness of the Lord, penetrate the coordinates of the inner ghost. The red-eyed Golu, the minion, trembled and burst into tears, the Lord's core energy is weak. The pulse blue crystal swallows the global battery, and the red-eyed slave 5 inner ghosts hide the thin new collar in the medical car. The self-inflicted hook bites on the east coast were all destroyed, and the weak point of the blue crystal knee was exploded. Lu Ting pressed the dagger to his throat and screamed, glaring, the boss captured the judge. The minions are for the Lord's weak blue crystal, and the dagger formation is clear. The beast tide's mother nest pulses and the green blood landslides. The black storm clouds gradually subside and the yellow sand slows down. The 4-story steel wall of the fortress is lined with hedgehogs. The hydrogen arc light is as warm as dawn at 300 meters. The acid mist recedes and the diesel oil is fresh and bloody. The pale faces of the 90 people in the convoy reflect golden admiration. Kneeling on the sand, Chen Feng is rebellious. The 2 waves of natural disaster beasts are pressing forward. They retreat to reinforce and destroy the mother's nest. The fort is solid and bright, and the people's hearts are iron. Qin Gong's torch breaks through Nuanyongye, Lu Ting defends invincibly, Sister Lin strains the rotten beasts, and Tang Yi comes to the rescue. The thin inner ghost Xian Ding sneaks into the doctor. By the side of the treatment car, a man with lustful eyes was shot into his chest by a strong man, and he knelt down and screamed, "Spare! Lord Red Eye control!" Chen Feng waved his M4 to suppress the buzzing sound. Lu Ting chopped off 5 ghosts and cleared them all. Qin Feng locked up and reported to the world. The second fortress was solid, and the torch broke through to call for reinforcements. Redraw the blue crystal weakness of the third layer, advance to the seed bank. Lu Ting roared, his head was rolling, and the green blood was flowing. Everyone's legs were weak and trembling, worshipping Fen Xin. The iron law is clear, the god leader kills the fire, the ugliness of human nature is destroyed, and unity is born. The camp roared with cheers, but the scout motorcycle suddenly returned. Chen Feng, covered in blood and panting, knelt down. Boss, the escape route ahead. The ultimate Dark Lord's lair, the black shadow swallows the mountain, and the red eyes are hundreds of millions. Worse, there are betrayers in the team. The strong men on the east coast are eavesdropping on the blueprints, and the external convoys are snatching the seeds. They move tonight. The air solidified, greedy eyes scanned the camp, the wind howled and the night became colder, the torch light flickered, and new crises were stalking like poisonous snakes. Chen Feng held the M4, the flames of war burning coldly. Clear the inner ghosts and prepare for the ultimate. The iron law will never be destroyed. In the afterglow of the eternal night, the 4-story steel wall of the second fortress stood like hedgehogs. The 300-meter beam of the hydrogen arc torch flickered like a dying candle, reflecting the green blood of the landslide. The sticky ground was pungent and rancid, mixed with the smell of burnt diesel and bloody rust of the wounded. 90 people in the convoy huddled beside the resource box, their pale faces reflected the golden light and were as exhausted as ghosts. Each person shared the compressed biscuits piece by piece, and the shadow of 3 days without food weighed heavily on their hearts. The strong new soldier knelt in the sand with a shotgun, his eyes burst with bloodshot eyes. The pulse of the black shadow in the distance accelerated, and his voice trembled like a candle in the wind. Boss. The sea of red eyes of the Lord is approaching the pulse earthquake ground, the blue crystal core swallows the global battery, the torch battery is exhausted and swaying, 200 bullets are wet and rusty and useless in the sand, the food is cut off, but the ghost inside clears people's minds. 50 self-mutilating hook bites on the east coast are completely wiped out, the intelligence is locked, the third nest is blue crystal knee socket. The fleet of 50 Hummer engines, the diesel fuel is almost gone, and all the monsters in the nest are buried. But the Lord finally enslaves him, unite and make fun of each other, eat each other first. Another skinny newcomer clenched his kitchen knife with trembling hands, his eyes flashed with fear, and the smell of urine stung his nose. He muttered furtively while sweeping the medical vehicle's seed bottle, "It's great to chop off the inner ghost, but the elite assassins of the Lord's minions are invisible." The storm has subsided and the dark clouds are pressing down. There is not enough steel left in the fortress to be welded to death. The torch has no ultimate energy to extinguish. Chen Feng's iron law cannot hold on. Chen Feng stood on top of the iron castle, the M4 barrels hot smoke mixed with sand and dust, the figure in the wind was like a broken blade pressing against a new crisis. He deeply inhaled the bitterness of the green blood mist and sulfur, his brain flashed and his minions confessed, and the red-eyed priest burst into tears. The blue crystal of the Lord's heart core exploded in the knee socket. The nest, the ruins in the northeast of the cave are pulsating, and the inner ghosts are medically weak, and the east coast is self-inflicted and the hook is biting the lock. Iron Fist holds the gun and coldly suppresses the ghost crying and howling. Integrate. The Qin Feng Fortress Laboratory integrates the seed energy to upgrade the blueprint and redraw the ultimate focus. Kilometer-driven Lord Black Mist. Lu Ting led 10 dagger formations to reconnoiter the nest layout, and the blue crystal coordinates in the knee socket were locked. Lin Yuyan's medical vehicle started the seed bank activation sequence, the strain spores were optimized to resist slavery, and Tang Yu's physical strength medicine suppressed fatigue, and the food was strict. The battery is rationed to 1 man and half, the Hummer reorganizes and rushes northeastward. The radio locks the frequency and feeds fakes, the second fortress falls and calls for reinforcements, and the world whispers to dig out the Lord's minions. Undoubtedly, push forward and kill through the eternal night. Qin Feng crawled on the ladder of the resource truck laboratory with weak legs. The blue arc of the welding gun extinguished the remaining fire and held the blueprint trembling. He stared at the black shadow outside the fort with round eyes. The pulse was as close as thunder. The remaining steel slag was scattered on the ground. His voice was hoarse and became fanatical as if seeing a divine revelation. Boss God break. Seed energy fusion. Sister Lin's blueprint gene battery presses the torch, and the 1,000-meter blue crystal resonates and explodes in the Lord's knees. The battery is exhausted and reversed. Finger flies, sparks crackle, the seed test tube green liquid golu is injected into the hydrogen arc core, and the red circle blueprint flashes. The torch beam soared 500 meters, the thorny black clouds and the acid mist receded, the pale face of the new warrior shone with light, his legs were soft and he knelt on the sand and murmured, "The Qin Gong ghost is upgraded. The seed energy is as warm as the sun." Chen Feng ordered the torch to be immortal, the god leader locked the blue crystal in the lair, and the inner ghost information was fed. The pulse of the Lord's black shadow is close, but the ultimate energy requires the stacking of blue crystal cores, and the fleet's battery life is almost 3 days. Qin Feng hugged the test tube and shook his legs. Breakthrough is close. The fusion is completed and the arc lock enslaves the red eye. Lu Ting's muscles were swollen with green blood. His old wounds were burning like fire. He threw the dagger out of the castle gate in a whirlwind. The dagger array was followed by 10 strong men's kitchen knives and shotguns. He roared to the ground, "Boss Iron Order, scout the lair." The blue crystal in the kneecap chops the Lord's pulse. The elite assassin comes to tear my muscles apart and kill him. The roar of the Humvee engine and diesel fuel lies low in the ruins of the northeast, the distant shadow with red eyes squirms and grunts loom in the black fog, the reconnaissance vehicle cuts through the sand with its steel thorns, the new soldier's bullets flicker as he glances at the Pulse Mountains, fearing that urine mixed with diesel fuel will burn his nose and choke. Brother Lu, the layout of the lair is pulse-breaking. Moving like a heart, the Azure Knee tumor flashes blue light for hundreds of meters, the Lord's black shadow mountains press, the minions and elites are approaching, and the convoy is completely wiped out. Lu Ting turned around and slashed the path with his dagger. The red eyes and green juice sprayed sulfur pain on his face. He gasped and hugged the map and yelled back, "Lock the knee 3 miles northeast of the lair." The crystal weakly exploded, and the elite 5-headed carapace elite pulsated and disappeared, and the plan was reported to the boss for setting up a trap. The strong man's eyes widened with blood-stained admiration and trembled. Lu Ting is the invincible detective. Chen Feng's intelligence integrated the blue crystal lock, and the dagger array came out of the pulse map, and people's hearts were filled with despair. Lin Yuyen's medical truck pounced on the sand and grabbed the seed box, her eyes moistened with cold light and she determinedly squeezed the blueprint for the startup sequence. The strain test tube's green liquid sprayed against the wall, and the spore cloud spread and corroded the ground. Chen Feng's fire protection. The bank startup sequence optimized the anti-slavery spores, and the blue crystal resonance dissolved the Lord's carapace, and 50% of the samples were pressed into the nest. The spores were pungent, and the red-eyed corpse softened and dripped green pus. The blueprint was flashed. Chen Feng advanced the route and locked the blue crystal knee, and the Lord noticed that the people nearby were chilling. Tang Yu injected a syringe with a refreshing grass-flavored medicine mixed with blood, and his hands were shaking and whitening, and he pressed the veins of the new soldier. Yu Yan sequence, help. The medicine optimizes fatigue pressure. 3 days off, strict rationing of half a cake to last. Chen Feng's iron rule of human nature is ugly, grateful to the deep sea. The wounded man gasped and whispered in the light of the torch, Tang medical acupuncture god, is in full physical strength, advancing on the final route of the fortress, the divine leader is invincible. The convoy of 50 steel-spiked Hummers was reorganized, engines and diesel roared to gain momentum in the northeast, the light of the torch 500 meters away was as warm as the dawn, driving away the shadows of fog beasts, and the radio locked frequency and fed fake whispers. The second fortress is destroyed by the torch, and the seed medical treatment is robbed. The East Coast faints around the world. The rescue hook bites and locks, the 90 pale faces divide the cake and chew it as dry as sand, the morale worship burns the heart and suppresses the hunger and despair, but the black shadow pulse of the Sky Lord accelerates like a collapsing mountain, the five-headed shadow of the red-eyed elite assassin turns into mist and rushes around the camp, the black armor pulsates and the tail spikes explode in the air and are harsh. The minions and red-eyed priests murmured the enslavement spell in their minds, the new warriors knelt down with shotgun bullets, their eyes widened in fear, their noses burst with urine, and they screamed with blood spraying through their shoulders, Assassin Elite. The Lord senses the attack. The carapace hides the fog and kills silently, and the pulse enslaves the brain, Chen the blue crystal locked on the maple route is exposed, and the whole camp is wiped out. The inner ghost is useless, and the human nature is enslaved. The thin new man dropped his kitchen knife and sneakily swept the assassin's shadow, his legs were weak and he climbed into the box and screamed, the leader's ultimate pressure, 500 torches were destroyed, and the convoy was buried in the sand for 3 days. The five-headed elite assassin, the elite pulsating leader, has the black-robed, red-eyed priest minions at the top of the camp, the whip, the Humvee steel spikes cracking, the green mist corrodes, scorches the tires, burns them and explodes, the brains of a strong man with shotguns explode and stick to the wall, and the empty shells of bullets burn out. When the camp dispersed, chaos broke out in the camp, ghosts cried, wolves howled, and seas of blood surged. 20 new warriors knelt on the sand and trembled and shouted in despair, collapse. The assassin is invincible and the slave of the hidden mist, the Lord's black shadow pulses for 3 miles shook the base of the fort, Chen Feng's divine game was over, and the blue crystal line was thrown into the net. Kill everyone and eat everyone. The blueprint of the welding gun in Qin Feng's laboratory shattered, and he knelt down with his legs weak and his eyes widened in fear and tears, boss. The fusion was destroyed halfway, the seed energy blue crystal needs the knee, and the assassin priest's spell brain is enslaving. Lin Yuyen. The test tube dropped the sand spore cloud halfway, and the cold light moistened and said in despair, the startup sequence is broken. The Lord noticed that the elites killed all the samples. Tang Yu shot the syringe into empty hands, shaking his hands and dragging the wounded to cough up blood, the physical medicine cannot suppress the slaves, the camp collapsed. Chen Feng raised his M4 to the priest's phantom, the iron-blooded lava churned and pressed into his brain. He was enslaved. He jumped out of the wind with steel spikes and fangs. The Hummer's engine roared and hit the assassin's carapace. The green juice sprayed out and the sulfur was bitter and mixed with blood. The dagger was unsheathed and the whirlwind chopped the tail into the knee socket. The green spring surged. He roared and suppressed the spell. The ghost cried, locked. Qin Feng fusion accelerated the seed energy and pressed the torch for a kilometer. Lu Ting's dagger burst into the priest's throat, and the kitchen knife gathered fire and the carapace was hidden. Fog. Lin Yuyen's spore cloud expands to resist slavery, Tang Yu's potion shoots the elite pulse and explodes. The Hummer's steel spikes collide with the blue crystal information, and the wireless anti-lock Lord whispers, the nest's knee trap is activated. Iron Law kills. The Hummer's wolf fangs burst into the carapace wall, the M4 literacy elite's green blood burst into the wind, the torch light soared thousands of meters, stabbing the night like the sun, the black fog receded, and the shadows of the arc whipped the assassins into a collective spasm of green blood. Qin Feng's fingers danced wildly, sparks crackled and finally merged. The seed energy green liquid gulu exploded into the core and hummed and expanded. The torch's 1,000-meter concentrated blue crystal resonated far away from the nest's knees. He was so excited that his legs were soft and he knelt on the sand and hugged the blueprint. He trembled and yelled, the boss's magic machine. The ultimate energy seeds are piled thousands of meters away. The shadow of the Lord of Light whip is convulsed and destroyed, and the blue crystal knee joints are softened and nearly exploded. The new warrior stared back and shouted in admiration, Qin Feng's genius finally breaks through. When Chen Feng drinks the torch, the shadow burns out, and the god reverses the line and locks the blue crystal trap. Lu Ting's muscles tore and burned in the priest's black robe, the dagger pulled the whirlwind and slashed his throat, green blood spurted out, the red-eyed priest's minions widened and tears flowed from his nose in despair, his trembling voice was hoarse and he regretted howling like a ghost. Chen Feng, divine judgment. The Lord's blue crystal knees weakly exploded, the information was true, enslaved me, all the ghosts in the infiltration were wiped out, regretted not listening to the East Coast hook bite, the ultimate energy seed pile could not be suppressed, the assassin's elite carapace pulse was broken, the knees self-destructed, the Lord's pulse collapse. The tail-thorn whip shot out from the shoulder, and Lu Ting hugged the priest's throat and pressed against the sand, shouting, "Boss, Iron Law Qingui." The priest regretted defeat, and the dagger array chopped all the elites, and the lair was filled with blue crystals and a fake trap. The strong man slashed with blood and worshipped, Lu Ting is invincible and cuts the desperate face of the priest, the assassin defeats the green blood mountain, and the people's hearts are enslaved to the burning sky. Lin Yuyan's spore cloud sprayed, the priest's rotten armor sizzled and softened, dripping pus, Tang Yu's injection shot the pulse of the elite, bursting with green mist and the cool grass smell, suppressing slavery, a convoy of 50 Hummers and steel-spurred wolf fangs reorganized in the northeast, the torch's warm light soared thousands of meters into the sky, piercing the black clouds, pulses twitching in the distance. The assassin's five-headed elite's carapace shattered, the Kara green blood sea collapsed, the pale faces of the 90 people in the camp were reflected in the blue gold, and their legs were weak in the sand. Burning heart, Chen Feng is the strongest god. The elite assassins of the Lord noticed the surprise attack and defeated the priests with regretful and despairing faces. The torch seeds finally suppressed the shadows for thousands of meters. The blue crystal knee trap blocked the route. Qin Gong merged with the ghosts. Lu Ting was invincible with his throat chop. Sister Lin's spores were rotten. Tang Yi's needle exploded. The inner ghost assassins were destroyed. The ugliness of human nature was buried. The Iron Law united to generate fire and broke through the night forever. But the pulse of the Sky Lord's black shadow accelerated, the distant shadow of the red-eyed sea squirmed, Qin Feng's torch light swayed and he held the blueprint and murmured, "Boss. Breakthrough requires the ultimate energy, the blue crystal core swallows the global battery stack, the Lord is close, the convoy reorganizes and crosses." Chen Feng stood on the top of the castle with the M4 sweeping the distant shadow, the war flames burned coldly to suppress the new crisis, and the iron blood surged like a torch to the sky. The golden and blue beam of the torch pulsates like a newborn sun. The warm current seeps through the sand and disperses the sour black fog of the eternal night. The pale faces of the 90 people in the camp are reflected in the golden glow. Their legs are weak and they kneel on the sand, gasping for breath. The smell of blood and rust is mixed with the bitter green pus and sulfur. The engines of 50 steel-thorn Hummers hum and evaporate with residual heat and burnt fragrance of diesel. The sticky ground of the green blood sea sizzles and corrodes the sand, the elite assassin's five-headed carapace is scattered like a rotten melon, the red-eyed priest's black robe is torn and his throat is torn, the green spring is drying up, and his face is wrinkled with tears of despair. Lu Ting's muscles swelled with green blood. The old wounds burned like coals. The dagger clicked in a whirlwind and chopped the last tail pulse. The empty shell of the shotgun of the strong new warrior clanged and dropped. His eyes were bloodshot. His voice trembled. He worshipped as if he saw a miracle. Brother Lu chopped the priest's throat. The desperate face was a fountain of green blood. The hidden mist on the elite carapace burned out and convulsed. Chen Feng's boss Hummer hit the M4. A blind leap suppresses the enslavement curse, and the Iron Law clears the ghosts, and the hearts burn together and the sky is united. The thin new man shook his hands and wiped his face with green pus, and the smell of urine turned into a fervent roar. The assassin's invincible night attack was defeated. Chen Fengshen locked the blue crystal knee trap against the route, and the sun warmed the bone marrow for 3 days without food. Chen Feng's Hummer top camp, Iron Fist Pine M4, is filled with hot smoke and dust. The figure in the wind is like an undefeated god of war, looking coldly at the pulse of the mountain shadow 3 miles away. He is trembling and grunting. He takes a deep breath of warm light, fresh and mixed blood, and his brain flashes. The priest regrets offering his sacrifice to the northeast lair, and his knees are blue. Jingwei exploded the information, and the sound of iron suppressed the ghost's cries, "Clean up." Lu Ting's dagger formation chopped off the remaining armor to search for crystal energy. Qin Feng's torch prototype fusion accelerated the stacked 1,000-meter whip shadow expansion. Tang Yu's injection suppressed the poison and injured the medical vehicle and locked the cabin. Lin Yuyan cracked the pulsation chart of the priest beacon lord. The new warriors divide the cake strictly for 3 days. The Hummer diesel is poured into the welded steel thorns without damaging the chassis. The radio is locked and whispers the world to call for support. The second fortress's torch seed energy is immortal. The lair's knee-trap blue crystal core chops the lord. The iron law advances, the fire breaks through the night. The crowd roared in response to the thunder. The pale faces were divided into compressed biscuits that were as dry as gravel in the throat, and the shadow of hunger weighed on the heart, but the warm light burned the morale. Lu Ting roared and hugged the priest's corpse, dragging sand from its throat. His muscles were torn and painful, burning green blood. The old wounds were dripping with pus. He followed up with daggers and shotguns from 10 strong men's kitchen knives to smash the carapace into pieces. He chopped open the carapace and green juice sprayed on his face. Sulfur was bitter and choked his nose. He opened his eyes wide and dug out his internal organs. The pulse crystal flashed blue and was as big as a grain of rice. He was trembling with excitement. His voice turned hoarse and turned into a frenzy, the boss's magic machine. The elite assassin's carapace hides the ultimate energy crystal with 5 pulsating blue crystals from the same knee. Stack the torch for 1,000 meters to whip the shadow and arc to lock the Lord's black shadow. Chop it up and capture them all. The dagger array is invincible to detect the god, and the lair layout is locked by weak intelligence in the knee. Zhuang, the remains of the bullets on the top of the Han Xian warrior's tail were stained with blood. They worshipped and kneeled on the sand. Their legs were weak and they knelt on the sand. Their bloodshot eyes stared at the spar Lan Hui and murmured. Lu Ting chopped off the armor and dug out the crystals. Chen Feng ordered the ghosts to collect the treasures. The ugly inner assassins of human nature were all buried. The spar warmed his hands like seeds of the sun. The fleet's battery life was cut off for 3 days. Can't stop. The thin new man chopped the inner pocket of the priest's black robe with a kitchen knife. The beacon fragments buzzed with blue light and pulsated. He picked it up and handed it to Lu Ting. His fear turned to urination and he shouted in admiration, "The beacon lord's pulse chart has been activated. The spar energy has been seized. The lord's knees have softened and are about to explode." Qin Feng climbed out of the laboratory ladder with weak legs and held the blueprint. The remaining fire of the welding gun was extinguished. He stared wide-eyed and saw the blue light of Lu Ting's crystal on his face. He was as crazy as a ghost. Boss is iron-blooded. The ultimate energy crystal is fused with 5 piles of seeds and energy, and the prototype of the torch is buzzing. Expanding and condensing light, the whip shadow arc network expands to drive away the black mist and melt the Lord's carapace. Fingers fly, sparks sizzle, green liquid Golu injects into the spar, pulsates and resonates, the core roars, the light beam skyrockets, the blue gold thorns last forever, the black clouds and acid mist recede, fresh and warm. In the Liupu camp, the pale face of the new soldier shone brightly and he knelt down on the sand and trembled, shouting, "Qin Gong's genius piled up crystals." The torch sun pulsed for 1,500 meters and the whip shadow exploded in time. Chen Feng ordered the fusion to be completed. The battery was exhausted and the reversal of energy will never be extinguished. The Hummer diesel can't suppress the magic. Qin Feng hugged his core in excitement and shook his legs with tears. Breakthrough to the extreme. The blue crystal knee joints resonated with the far lock lord's pulse and trembled. The global radio torch signal flashed, and the team was famous forever. Tang Yu's medical car syringe shot out a cool grass-flavored physical medicine mixed with green pus and blood. The new soldier's hands were trembling and white, and he dragged the strong man's shoulder through the poison vein. The hemostatic vine locked the cabin to optimize the pressure of the enslaved toxins. The 20-year-old wounded man gasped palely and reflected in the warm light of the torch. He murmured gratitude, "Tang medical needle god. The elite assassin's tail sting is poisonous and the rotten bone marrow cannot be suppressed. The physical medicine bursts and continues to starve for 3 days. Chen Feng's Iron Law rescuer is deeply alert to the ugliness of human nature." She turned and shot Lu Tinglishue's muscles swelled and pained his old injuries, and his gentle and strong eyes flashed with dependence and worship. "Brother Lu is invincible in his chops. The poisonous injuries are fully healed with injections. The medical samples are 50% optimized to resist the Lord's enslavement. Thank you to the boss for locking the blue crystal." The strong man with weak legs stood up and the wounded man clenched his bloodshot eyes and turned wildly. "Tang Yu, help." Chen Feng reversed the Hummer's crushing spell, the poison needle exploded with green mist, and the morale burned to the heart to unite the iron. Lin Yuyan's medical vehicle pounced on the sand to grab the fragments of the beacon, her eyes moistened with cold light and she pinched the blueprint of the startup sequence decisively. The strain test tube's green liquid gurgled out onto the wall, and the spore cloud spread. The sticky priest's corpse sizzled, softened, and dripped pus. Her fingers flew to decipher the buzzing pulsation. Pictured is the blue crystal tumor in the knee socket of Sonli Northeast, which flashes 100 meters away. The Lord's black shadow pulses wildly, and the pulse is softening and is about to explode. His voice is hoarse and trembles with excitement. Chen Feng's fire protection. The priest's beacon cracks the full picture of the Lord's pulse, and the knee socket is weak and explodes with crystal stones. Heap resonance dissolves the carapace, activates the sequence to optimize the spore resistance to enslave the world, and 50% of the samples are buried in the nest. The newbie knelt down with soft eyes and worshipped the spore cloud. Sister Lin's ecological magic skill cracked the beacon. Chen Feng advanced the route and broke the blue crystal lock trap. The Lord realized that the elites were defeated, and the civilization seed bank was launched. The dawn of cooperation is near. Tang Yu handed over the spore test tube and whispered gratefully, "Yu Yan's sequence saves the seriously injured, and the medical team joins forces to suppress the eternal night." The aftermath of the camp was shrouded in calm and warm light. 90 people shared half of the biscuits and chewed dry, hungry throats. The 50 Hummers were welded and repaired with tank-like chassis. The diesel was poured out and the Qin Feng welding gun sparkled and the blue crystal energy auxiliary engine roared to gain momentum. The strong new soldier dropped the empty shotshell shells in the sand and polished the kitchen knife. His pale face reflected the thousands and 500 meters of pulsating torches. He knelt on the sand and worshipped Burning Heart. Chen Feng is the boss of the gods. The assassin defeated the spar and seized the fire during the night attack. The torch is completed, and the reputation of the radio flashes all over the world. The fire will not be extinguished if the second fortress is not trapped. The blue crystal will trap the Lord in the lair, and the iron law and unity will suppress the floating inner ghosts. The thin newcomer sneakily scanned the resource box and looked at the iron fist in awe. The boss has gained the ultimate harvest. The treasure crystal energy is sustainable, the 4-story steel wall of the fortress is welded to death, the resources are locked, the fleet of 50 vehicles reorganizes the final route to the northeast, and the hunger can't suppress the happy life for 3 days. Whispers of radio frequency locking and anti-locking exploded around the world. The torch signal pierced the black clouds pulsing at 1,500 meters, and the East Coast hook bite self-mutilation information fainted to call for new survivors, murmuring and turning to hope. Second Fortress Chen Feng Shen Leader Torch Seed Energy Sun is falling. The assassin elite killer priest regretted the blue crystal knee lock, gathered resources to escape the lair and rushed. 90 people in the camp roared with enthusiasm. Lu Ting's muscle-healing dagger was ready to chop in the whirlwind. Qin Feng held the torch core blueprint and his legs were weak with excitement. Tang Yu's injection is locked in the cabin for medical treatment, Lin Yuyan's spore cloud monitors the pulse, Chen Feng stands coldly on the top of the Hummer and stares at the 3-mile black shadow, the pulse grunt accelerates and trembles. He holds the kitchen knife in his iron fist and changes it to a dagger to deeply inhale the warm light and freshness to suppress his hunger. His fighting spirit soars to the sky. The trivia is clear. The torch is assembled and the crystal stone pile is sustainable. The beacon map lock lord is weakly exploded. The convoy gathers 50 Hummers to attack the northeast lair, and the seed bank activates the civilization torch to advance through the darkness. Everyone's engines roared and gathered momentum, and the warm light and bone marrow burned away the shadows of 3 days without food, but the black shadow pulse of the 3-mile lord in the sky was violent and trembling like a mountain avalanche. The blue crystal resonance in the knees flashed for 100 meters, softening and foreboding to explode. The black mist surged, sour and pungent, and the sea of red eyes squirmed and loomed. The power of the eternal night roared in person and rocked the fortress. The sand flew away, and the new warriors saw bullets sliding on the sand. Their eyes widened with fear and bloodshot threads exploded and screamed, "The Lord is here." Black Shadow Vein, the battle is about to begin, and the whole camp is buried in the sand. Qin Feng's hands and legs softened and he knelt on the sand. He burst into tears and said, "The boss is in trouble." The torch whip shadow locks the blue crystal, and the total attack is to chop the core. The daggers clicked and the muscles roared. The Lord is invincible at the knees. The 50 Hummers in the convoy stabbed into the air and gathered momentum. Chen Feng's M4 heat pipe thrust its eyebrows into cold flames and burned the sky to crush the black shadows. The dawn of the decisive battle was about to begin. The engine roared like thunder tearing through the eternal night. 50 steel-spiked Hummers rushed out like a stream of iron. A sandstorm rolled into the sky with yellow mist. The aftertaste of diesel was burnt and mixed with the blue crystal auxiliary arc. The sizzling low sound supported the nearly broken fuel line. Chen Feng led the Hummer, the M4 heat pipe raised his brows to the sky with cold flames burning into the sky. He held the modified kitchen knife and dagger blade in his iron fist with cold light shining on the sand. He took a deep breath of the warm light, fresh and refreshing, suppressing the dryness and hunger in his throat. His eyes were fixed on the black shadow pulse of the 3-mile northeast lair. Gulu went berserk like a sign of a landslide. The 90 people in the camp roared to the heart, their pale faces reflected the 500-meter, 1,000-meter torch pulsating, kneeling on the sand and turning into a frenzy. The strong new warrior threw empty shells into the sand and polished the kitchen knife. His legs were soft and slippery. After 3 days of chewing half a piece of biscuit, the entire camp was buried in the sand. The skinny newcomer, with the smell of urine turning to tremble, clenched his fists and growled. Chen Feng suppressed the enslavement spell with his Hummer, and used the torch whip shadow to lock the blue crystal. But the guards on the outer edge of the lair hit the wall with their 1,000 carapace heads, and they almost died from hunger in the decisive battle. The iron stream of the Humvee crashed into the sea of black mist, the bitterness of putrid sulfur stung the nose like fire burning the lungs, the red-eyed guard's 1,000-headed carapace squirmed and loomed, green blood pulses flashed, rice grains and blue crystal knee sockets faintly resonated, and the shadow of the tail's sting whip exploded and flew away like rocks. The steel-spiked fangs of the leading Hummer tore open the front 3, the carapace cracked and shattered, green juice sprayed into the sky, the sticky chassis was simmering and corroding, and the new soldier driving the strong man with wrinkled face and pale sand screamed, "The guard's carapace is invincible and cannot be penetrated. The blue crystals in the knees protect the heart, the ammo is exhausted and the kitchen knife cannot chop the green-blooded sea-rot tires, the 3-mile lair black shadow Galutin fleet is completely destroyed." Lu Ting's passenger car. The muscles of the 10 strong men in the dagger array were swollen, the pain from the injections was burning like charcoal, and they heard the roar like a beast king. Boss ordered to chop off the guard's knees. The dagger array got out of the car to clear the road, and all the bullets were invincible in close combat. Everyone's legs were weak and fear turned to despair, and they whispered, "Brother Lu chopped off the priest and was like a god." But the guards' thousands of heads were filled with red eyes, and their legs were so weak that they were buried in the sand because of hunger, and the inner ghost has risen again and completely collapsed. The convoy was stuck in a quagmire, the Hummer engine hummed intermittently in black mist, the diesel fuel poured out the blue crystal, and the arc flashed weakly. The guard's tail thorn whipped the side wall of the Hummer, and the steel spikes and wolf teeth curved, green pus dripped, and the sand corroded the tires and slid. The new warrior was skinny with a kitchen knife, sticky with green blood, shaking hands, chopping off the tail, stabbing back, biting shoulder flesh, blood spurting out. He knelt on the sand and urinated blood, crying in fear. The Lord's pulse went wild and summoned a wave of guards. Chen Feng's route was cut off by the blue crystal knee socket. But the fuel was out of ammunition and the hungry ghosts cried, and the 3-mile lair swallowed the life. Tang Yu's medical car syringe shot out the cool grass-flavored physical medicine mixed with blood, his hands shook and turned white, and he pressed the 20 veins of the injured to stop them. Locking the cabin with blood vines, his pale face reflected the mist and trembled. 50% of the injection suppresses the slave poison. A protracted battle cannot withstand a 1,000-headed rotten sea of guards. Qin Feng held the core blueprint of the torch and the fire of the welding gun crackled, his legs went limp and he knelt on the sand, eyes rounded with enthusiasm and despair. 5 pieces of crystal are piled 1,500 meters long to whip the shadow. The arc of black mist, acid and corrosion is nearly broken, and to light up the full power locked knee socket, you need to get close to the nest to explode. The Lord's black shadow pulses for 3 miles like thunder and collapses the mountain. The azure tumor in the knee pit is 100 meters shining, the sea of green blood surges, and the red-eyed guards are squirming and colliding with the iron stream of the convoy. The Hummer's steel spikes and wolf fangs crush 10 heads, and the green juice sprays into the sky. The sticky sand is sizzling. The strong man driving is blood-stained and worships. His legs are soft and mutters. Chen Feng, the boss's Hummer crashes against the tide of guards. But the fog guard in the knee pit cannot hold it, and the hunger bombs destroy the entire camp. Lin Yuyan medical the car rushed to the sand to grab the spore test tube, and the green liquid was grunting. His eyes were wet and cold, and he whispered decisively, "Start the sequence to press the nest. 50% of the sample spores are dissolved in the cloud and the carapace needs to be close to the blue crystal core." Despair pressed the camp, 90 people were pale and gasping, hungry shadows burned their hearts, and the human nature was ugly and thin. The newbie sneakily scanned the resource box and whispered, "Spar torch treasure. The boss will die, the guard will swallow, and the diesel biscuit will be swallowed alone." Chen Feng's Hummer hit the roof with its iron fist. Leng Yen glanced at the despair camp, and suppressed the ghost's cry with a cold voice, "Iron law clears out the inner ghost." Lu Ting's dagger array chopped the guard's knee to open a way. Qin Feng's prototype torch lit up the whip shadow lock blue crystal at close range. Lin Yuyan's spore cloud melted the sea of armor. Tang Yu's injection exploded to suppress the poison for a long time. The Humvee's steel thorns pierced the Sonli lair for a general attack. Hungry bombs cannot suppress the unity of the fire, chop the dawn of civilization in the Lord's knees. Everyone knelt on the ground with weak legs and roared wildly in response to the thunder. The strong new warrior held the empty shell of the kitchen knife and worshipped Fenchen with bloodshot eyes. The boss's divine judgment is reversed. The inner ghost is crushed to death, and Tai Lushing unites to chop through the darkness. The thin newcomer was frozen and cried. Chen Feng locked his heart with iron fist. Hungry pressed his throat without regrets. Lu Ting roared and jumped on top of the Hummer, his muscles bulged and the remaining energy from the injection exploded. The pain turned into a frenzy. The dagger hit the front guard's knee with a whirlwind of blue crystal fog, and the 10 strong men followed up with kitchen knives and shotguns, roaring like a pack of wolves. The new warrior's eyes widened as he saw Lu Ting's dagger chop into his knee pit, the carapace shattering, the fountain of green blood sticking to his face, the sulfur bitterness choking his nose. His legs were weak and he knelt on the sand, trembling, worshipping and murmuring, "Brother Lu is invincible, chop into his knee pit." The blue crystal rice grains exploded, the green mist melted, the carapace spasmed, and the guard's red eyes turned white in despair. thousands of heads collapsed. The boss ordered the detective to clear the way with the dagger array. Han drove a kitchen knife to cut off the tail and stabbed the blood dye and shouted excitedly. Lu Ting chopped off the guard's pulse and stopped. Chen Feng's knees were locked on the route, and the Hummer's steel spikes and fangs crashed through the sea of fog without any damage. The guard's thousands of knees were weakly exploded, the intelligence was fully activated, the sea of green blood receded and the sand sizzled and corroded, the iron flow of the convoy accelerated and roared, and the black shadow of the 3-mile lair, Gulu, trembled and softened. The Hummer crashed into the outer cave wall of the lair, the steel-thorned wolf teeth tore through the rocks, and pulled debris flying into the sky. The black fog was as thick as ink, sour and rotten, burning the nose and burning the lungs. The Lord's black shadow core pulse ran 1,000 meters away, and the towering carapace squirmed and the red-eyed priest's remnant soul shook the ground with a low roar. Qin Feng climbed up the ladder with soft legs and hugged the core blueprint of the Hummer. Sparks crackled from the welding torch, and the fingers flew. 5 stacked crystals buzzed and resonated. The prototype of the torch surged and the whip shadow arc network expanded for 1,500 meters. The piercing black mist dissolved and the fresh warm current rushed towards the camp. The new warrior's pale face reflected the light and he retreated to his knees. His bloodshot eyes exploded and roared wildly, Qin Gong's ghost is the one to light up. The resonance of the spar's knees whipped the Lord's carapace and cracked the carapace. Green juice sprayed into the sky. The pulse of the Lord's black shadow trembled wildly, softened and exploded. The black mist retreated and warmed the bone marrow to suppress hunger. Qin Feng was so excited that his legs were wet with tears. The boss is close to locking the blue crystal. The torch is full power and the sun is falling, and the Lord is reborn invincibly. The Lord's red eyes roared and shook the castle, Ji Shaifai, the carapace regenerated, the green blood gula healed, and the whip shadow was burned and convulsed. Lin Yuyan pounced on the lair sand to grab the activation sequence blueprint, the strain test tube green liquid sprayed on the wall, the spore cloud spread, the sticky Lord's carapace squirted, softened and dripped pus, the 100-meter knee socket tumor flickered and pre-exploded, her fingers flew to decipher the pulsation diagram, the cold light was determined and trembling with excitement, fire protection. The spore cloud resists slavery and dissolves the core of the knee socket, the seed bank activates the global spread of ecological aura. The newbie knelt down with weak legs to sweep the spores and dissolve the corpses of the guards. He worshipped and shouted, Sister Lin's ecological magic skill. The Lord's knee socket softened and the green mist cleared. Chen Feng pushed the blue crystal into the nest and chopped it through, and the seeds of civilization sprouted. The climactic decisive battle breaks out, the Lord's black shadow pulses, the grunt collapses the mountain, the sea of red eyes squirms, the tail thorn whips, the shadow whips the Hummer group, the craw tore the steel thorns, the wolf fangs bend the green blood-rotten chassis. Chen Feng's Hummer leaped to the top, his iron fist held a dagger, and the blade of the kitchen knife was as cold as lightning. The figure in the wind, the undefeated god of war, soared into the sky with cold flames and struck at the azure tumor in his knee, which softened his core for hundreds of meters. Lu Ting's dagger array, wing protection, chopped tail, stabbed Kara, sprayed green juice on his face and yelled, Boss chops the core and is invincible. The brawny new warrior's kitchen knife gathered fire and blood stained his legs and became weak in admiration. Chen Feng jumped into the air pressure Lord's curse. The spores in the knee socket dissolved and the whip shadow burned, and the kitchen knife chopped through. The Lord's red eyes roared in despair, the black shadow's carapace spasmed, and the sea of green blood poured in with sand. Chen Feng's dagger stabbed his knee in a whirlwind, and the blue crystal shattered into pieces. The green spring fountain was thousands of meters high, and his pulse stopped. The torch surged to full power, and the 10,000-meter golden blue light beam pulsated like a newborn sun. The warm current seeped sand and dispelled the black fog of the eternal night. The freshness hit the nostrils and suppressed the sour rot. The monster's red-eyed sea squirmed, turned white, convulsed, and dispersed the green blood, rotten sand, and the steaming sulfur lingering fragrance. The core of Qin Feng buzzes with the afterglow of sustainable blue crystals. Lin Yuyan's seed bank activation sequence is fully activated, the spore cloud spreads the earth's green buds, breaks through the sand, sprouts and shines with warm light, and the torch of civilization lights up forever and shines in the night, and the global radio blasts to call for help. 90 new warriors knelt on the sand, their pale faces reflected the golden glow, their legs were weak and trembling, worshipping Fen Xian and shouting. Chen Feng pierced the core of the Lord with a dagger. The blue crystal in his knee was exploded and the sea of blood was wiped out. The sun descended from the torch thousands of meters away and the monsters dispersed. The seed sprouted to rebuild the dawn. The iron-blooded status of the old army god was forever sealed. The unity of the people's hearts and the iron law produced fire that will never be extinguished. Lu Ting's muscles relaxed and he stabbed the dagger into the sand, wet with tears and fervently. The boss chops the Lord invincible, the dagger array protects the miracle. Tang Yu's eyes fell on the ground with gentle and strong eyes, iron law rescues the ugliness of human nature. Medical healing celebrates the victory. Qin Feng's blueprint hugged his chest and legs and burst into tears, the fusion of geniuses is completed. The global torch signal flashes for a new era of civilization. Lin Yuyan's eyes were wet and the cold light turned warm, the seed bank is launched. Yuyan's guardian fire is shining. The 4-story steel wall of the second fortress of the camp was welded to death to lock resources. 50 Hummers with steel spikes stopped the sand without damage. Diesel blue crystal assisted sustainability. The compressed biscuit separated the hungry shadows and burned away the warm light and warmed the bone marrow. 90 people celebrated the victory together. The strong new warrior piled sand and fire with shotguns and kitchen knives, his face was filled with bloodshot eyes, and he murmured happily, Chen Feng has grown into a leader. From Go Bao to Chop Lord, lighting the torch, the meaning of adventure is to unite to overcome the darkness and rebuild the home. The skinny new warrior faced the iron fist in awe and was unscrupulous. The boss has gained the ultimate harvest. The treasure seed energy is sustainable, and the new home fortress expands and survivors gather around the world. Chen Feng stood on top of his Hummer and took a deep breath of fresh warmth. His cold eyes swept across the new green shoots. The assassin in the Brain Flash adventure defeated the priest and confessed to the inner ghost. He cleared the fire and advanced. The iron voice rang out, the trivial matter is over. The Lord chopped off his knees and destroyed. The seeds of sustainability spread over 10,000 meters. The iron law of the new home of the second fortress expanded. The convoy became famous all over the world and called for help to rebuild civilization after the Great Escape. The fire will never be extinguished, and the dawn will shine forever. But 3 miles into the lair, the pulse of the black shadow of the Lord trembled wildly, and the azure crystal knee pits resonated and flashed with blue light, softening the omen. Chen Feng held the M4 in the iron fist of the Hummer and looked coldly at the distant pulse. The cold flames of war were overwhelming the final game, advance. The final route to the northeast lair, the blue crystal core chopped into the Lord's knee pits, and the seed bank activated the civilized torch to light up. Everyone roared like thunder, the engine roared into the night, and the morale exploded to burn out despair. Warm light shrouded the earth, green buds broke through the sand and spread across the camp. The afterimages of the monsters receded and the black mist disappeared forever. The 90 people roared in response with thunderous roars, morale surged, and they united. Chen Feng's figure stood like an undefeated god of war under the torch, and a new era of civilization reconstruction began.